My Tiffany, recording videos for her students.
Test.
Yeah. Sit up. Action. That's cool. You're good at it.
No.
Okay, so we're ready to go? Okay. All right, we will call this meeting to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is to my left. All right. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everybody. We'll do a roll call and we'll just leave it up to those of us on the stage. So Sarah, we'll start with you. Okay. Sarah Hoyer.
Eric Deecher. Jason Schultz. Matt Hirsch.
Lauren Tice-Miller. Erica Price. Rosa Cavazos.
Business.
All right, we'll move on to approval of the agenda and minutes of the September 8, 2020 board meeting.
So moved.
I've got a motion by Jason. Do I have a second? I'll second. I have a second by Erica. All in favor, show of hands. 6-0. All right, moving on to action item, approved timeline for superintendent search.
We got Sue Givens here from KSDE, KSB, I'm sorry.
Yes. Thank you. It's good to see you again. And want to point out that you have a notebook on your desk. And first of all, I want to thank you for allowing Kansas Association of School Boards to facilitate your search for your next superintendent. We appreciate and just really are excited to help you with that. In the inside cover on the left-hand side is a proposed timeline. Those are tentative dates, and I have a pen, and I'm listening, and we will change any of those that you would like to change to better suit your district's needs. You'll notice that we did a proposed timeline this summer, and it was a little longer timeline. I shortened that up some because the search we proposed to start in November. That's our recommendation for most searches. We find that candidates are not as eager to apply very early because of their current positions oftentimes, and it also allows them to have some of the holiday period to work on applications and things like that. So we try to span that time period. We would propose that you announce your candidate or your opening on November 19th. At that same time, we will work with your board clerk to put together marketing materials that will be available when that position is announced. And so between now and then, we'll get those materials. Our staff in our office puts everything together. Your clerk just provides some information. Those marketing materials, though, there are samples of those in this book. Everything in the search really is in this book is your homework. We really want you to go through that and look at it. So you'll have that go out, and then if you choose, you can have a patron and community survey. It asks the characteristics that your patrons would like to see in your next superintendent. We have had districts who just open that up on their website. We do all of the conducting of the actual survey. We do all the compilation. But it's something that's informative for you as you get ready to determine your own characteristics as a Board of Education. This is the most important job that you will have in setting leadership for your district. And so we really want you to get as much feedback and input as you can. So we recommend that survey. It's also a good opportunity for everybody in your school community to be involved and to have voice. And so that's something that is optional for you, but if you choose to do it, I've got a proposed timeline for the administration of that survey. And that is timed so that when I come back, hopefully on December 7th, that's another board meeting night, but on the 7th, we would propose that you have patron groups and staff groups and do characteristics committees. Those committees would meet with me for approximately 45 minutes each throughout that day. And I've started as early as 7 o'clock in the morning. You'll determine who those groups are. As an example, some districts will have staff groups. They may have elementary and secondary separated, classified. We provide opportunities throughout the day, starting as early or as late as you want to go. Usually the staff groups works better to do those after the school day is over. Community groups, sometimes you'll have business leaders in a focus group. We usually try to do those around the noon hour. Some districts have student groups, their high school student council, or even their middle school. I've done middle school survey groups as well. Again, working with those groups to develop a set of characteristics that they recommend we have in our next superintendent in USD 450. That evening, I spend some quick time compiling all of that. I come back in open session, share with you the results of the characteristics survey and also the characteristics focus groups. In this book, even the letters inviting people to come to those focus groups are in here. Everything you need is in here. And except me. I'm about the only thing that's not in the book. And you'll hear that report, and then I'll take you through the same process that we take the community groups through, and you will develop the characteristics for your next superintendent. We'll use those as we screen candidates. So we'd propose that on the 7th of December, then close the applications on January 5th, and that should be 21. Immediately, I can see that the confirmed date will have to be a different year. And then on the 11th of January, we will have a team of professionals as well as all of the leadership specialists in our office who will screen your applicants. We'll screen them according to the characteristics that you set forth, and that night I will meet with you in executive session. That's a long night, about an hour and a half executive session, and you will learn all of your candidates all of your applicants, and you will also know which ones that we would recommend you move forward with as finalists. But you're the Board of Education, and in the end, you determine who those finalists will be. You may or may not accept our recommendations. It is your job. I mean, that is your calling as a Board of Education, is to select that chief operating officer for your district. So at the end of that night, you will make a call, Lauren, to each person. I will leave after I present the findings of the screening, and you will continue an executive session. You'll determine who your finalists will be, and you'll set an interview schedule. And then your president will contact, or you can delegate it to your clerk, will contact each of those candidates who are finalists and invite them to an interview. We'd propose that then you get started right away with interviews the week of January 19th to the 25th. And then by February 1st, we would anticipate that you will know who your next superintendent will be at Shawnee Heights. There are a lot of details that go into that. This book outlines all of those details, but I also do that with you as I come back. So when I come back for focus groups, I'll go over the next steps with you and talk about what you need to get done before I come back again. So what you need to get done before I come back again is we've got to make sure these dates are going to work for you. Then I want you to read the beginning of this book, this notebook, through page 9 and all of phase 1. Through page 9 is an overview of the entire process. And it hits some of the things that you're going to want to know right away. And then Phase 1 is all about the announcement, the timeline, which we'll have done by tonight, shows you the marketing materials, and pretty much talks about the getting started part. There's a little bit of Phase 2 that you will need to deal with, and that's setting your characteristics study groups, on who you want to look at on those focus groups. Again, remember that I'll have as many meetings as I can have, and I've done 2 days even in some districts. So if we need to set 2 days, depending on how many folks you have, we'll just add a date to the schedule. That's what I need you to read before I come back. And I need you to talk about, between now and November, what focus groups you want. So dates, who you want on your focus groups, and then the survey, the optional survey. So if you have an idea now of whether or not these dates will work, the sooner we get those locked in on the KSB calendar, the better it is for us. We have already, we know we have at least 5 searches already, maybe more by the end of today, so we know there are quite a few coming up.
Are there arrangements that could be made to have some of these sessions virtually if we need to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can. We, last spring, we finished some of the searches that we were doing virtually.
Okay.
And it's not ideal,
Right.
but we had to honor the wishes of the boards and also the wishes of the candidates who were uncomfortable coming in face-to-face. So
Yeah.
we can do that. We also can do, the survey really helps a lot with the focus and the characteristics, but I can do focus groups virtually as well.
Okay.
I know how to use breakout rooms.
And then how many, on the December 7th date, when we do the superintendent characteristics committees, those are the focus groups, how many of the actual board members have to be present for those, or not at all?
Not
None?
all, because
Okay.
you are the final focus group.
Okay.
You're the group that you'll take all that information that you've heard, all the background, and as representatives of your community, your own understandings of what you need to look for, and we'll determine that final list. We also make those lists available to candidates. If they contact us and want to know more about a position, we will share with them what characteristics you're looking for. We don't want somebody to apply who doesn't meet the characteristics. Well, we don't care if they apply, but we want to make sure the person you pick meets them. Other questions? Yes, Rosa.
With the dates that November 30th through December 4th, in the past, have you seen those surveys to be turned in on time? I mean, that's a week after Thanksgiving, so I didn't know if people would
It's
be...
amazing. Our data shows that people fill them out within the first 24 hours.
Okay.
And after that, it kind of straggles in. We anticipate with the holiday that getting past Thanksgiving is better than trying to do it before.
Okay.
Yes, we will have, it just varies. But again, giving people that opportunity, and we recommend you send it out in your news blasts and also put it on your website. It's an open survey for anybody who's interested in providing you feedback.
Okay. Thank you. My only question would be if we would want to keep the date actually aligned with our board meetings. I don't know if that makes any difference, but November 16th is when our second board meeting is in November. So I don't know if we want to start it on the 16th or if that even matters.
We sure can. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Not
That's
a
a
problem
great
at all.
date.
Might be kind of neat to make that
My birthday.
announcement that night, that
Yep.
your application's live.
Yep.
You bet.
Okay.
Let's just change that. again, this is a customizable process. I'm going to tell you best practice, but if there's something you want to change, we can do that.
Okay.
The only one that is a long night is that January 11th. And I don't know if that's usually a heavy board meeting for you. Usually January's a little bit lighter, except for election of officers for some districts. But that can get to be a long night. And some districts want to do that in a special session.
Trying to look up the calendar here.
Would that even be, we meet on the 1st and 3rd.
It'll be the 4th.
That would be the 4th and the 18th.
Yeah. Okay, so on the 7th, that is our meeting for December, so that would fit. So then we would need to adjust the January dates to reflect our board meetings. So that would be which actually the 18th is Martin Luther King Day.
Right.
Oh, I guess we do meet on that day though, so we could call a special meeting on the 11th, or we could push it to the 18th.
If the meeting is going to, if that meeting is going to be especially long, it probably would be worth it to call a special meeting.
Special meeting. Okay.
And I'm unfortunately tied up with a strategic planning in another district on the 18th.
Okay, so then we'll just plan on having a special meeting on the 11th.
Okay. I think you'll be more satisfied with that. You will not feel tired or rushed, and
Yeah.
be able to take your time with screening those applications.
Okay.
There will be some, at the end of the process, there will be some delay in announcing your next new superintendent, because you will want to make sure that you have a clear contract signed and returned before you make that announcement. So
Right.
there'll be people who think that you should announce it on the 25th at the end of your interviews, and that may or may not be the case. If you hire a practicing superintendent, they'll have to be released because they can't be under 2 contracts at once, so sometimes that can take a couple of weeks. So just so that you're aware, that I say you should know your next superintendent by February 1st about.
Does anybody have any objections to the online survey?
No.
So then we could have a motion to approve the timeline and the survey, and we just cross 2 items off of our to-do list, if I can get that motion.
Yes, you do. You're
So
almost
moved.
done with all the things.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
I've got a motion by Jason and a second by Eric. All in favor, show of hands. 6-0. Thank you very much, Sue.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
And I will send a finalized timeline to Sarah and also to you, Lauren.
Okay.
And, thank you all again. We appreciate you using KSB.
Thank you. All right. Get my agenda back up here. All right, we'll move on to item 6, communications, comments, concerns from board member, or from patrons, sorry. This is an opportunity for district patrons to address either topics directly relevant to the business of the district or items on the current board agenda. All comments must be directed to the president of the board or presiding officer. Individuals will be given 5 minutes to present ideas, opinions, and/or concerns, and any emails that have been submitted to the board clerk have been limited to 500 words or less. And we will begin tonight with the emails that have been received by our board clerk.
Okay, I'll start with the first one. Good evening. My name is Adrienne Kell. I am the pre-K teacher at Tecumseh North. I would like to express my thoughts about the district coming back to 5 days a week. I am not comfortable having all of my students in my classroom at one time for multiple reasons. One, social distancing. I will not be able to properly have them socially distanced. I am currently having a hard enough time with the small number of students I have in one group. I have already moved all unnecessary furniture and all toys from my classroom. Not to mention nap time would be even harder. Social distancing at lunch would be impossible as the students are required to be at least 6 feet apart when their masks are not on. I currently have 8 students in each group. We are barely able to maintain the 6 feet necessary. If I add one more student, let alone another entire group of students, this would not be possible as I am out of class space. 2, transportation. All of my students currently ride a bus to and from school. It would be a burden on my families to figure out their own transportation to and from school on the days that they would be required to transport themselves. 3, planning. Teachers have spent hours upon hours planning for a COVID classroom. Currently, teachers are able to have team and grade-level meetings on Wednesdays to plan lessons that focus on the essential standards. Teachers would no longer be able to have that, and planning and meetings would take place after contract hours. We are already taking away from our family time with the hybrid scenario. I feel that my family time would decrease further if we return to school full-time. So not only do I suffer, but my family does too. 4, manipulatives. We do not currently have enough manipulatives for one group. Students are not supposed to share items, and by bringing everyone at one time, we will not have enough learning materials. Teachers have asked for items but have been turned down due to money or being told that we don't need those items. I personally feel that if we ask for it, there is a purpose behind it and the items are needed. Teachers have spent so much of their personal money to gather needed items that it would cause us to do so again. I personally do not want to spend any more money. I have already spent too much. Five, substitutes.
Oh, you're on.
This is the same one. We already have a current shortage of subs, with the main reasons being stated are because they do not want to catch COVID or there are too many guidelines. Classrooms are having a hard time filling openings with a small number of kids per day. Imagine if we bring back our entire class. We won't have any subs at all. 6, consistency. Families, teachers, and students are just starting to get into a routine, and it could potentially be upset by going full-time. If we go back full-time, it would be another change, and then if we have to close down again and stay at home, it would yet be another change. By keeping students in the hybrid schedule, and if we had to choose again, I feel the transition would be easier on everyone. Families would only have to plan for 2 additional days at home instead of 5. The usage of technology on a 5-day week scenario would be used less and would be harder to transition back to technology. 7, physical safety. Is it safe at all to have that many kids in a small space at one time? Increasing the number of students in a classroom increases the chances of COVID coming into the classroom. It increases the number of students to be exposed as social distancing would not be maintained. Added PPE, such as clear barriers, were requested to start hybrid, and teachers were turned down due to the unavailability and it not being a necessity. 8, mental health. Have we thought about our student and our teacher mental health? Yes, it would be good for everyone to come back, but at the same time, it wouldn't. If a class had to be quarantined or we have to stay at home again, it would have a higher negative effect. Teachers' mental health would suffer too. I know I am already currently stressed, and I can't imagine what it would be like if we come back to 5 days. Thank you for your time and listening to my concerns. Adrienne Kell.
I have one from Joseph Orcutt. To whom it may concern, my name is Joseph Orcutt, and I have 3 children in the Shawnee Heights District. I am reaching out to you to request you consider reinstating school learning full-time. We recently transferred our 16-year-old son to the area due solely to the educational opportunities that he would have. We also have a child in pre-K at Shez. We struggled to get her enrolled. As I'm sure you know, there is limited space in this program. We have gone out of our way to raise our family in the Shawnee Heights area only because of what the district does. It is my concern that if this is not addressed, we will start to lose the great residents of this district, in turn, losing the funds to support the most important thing to us, which is our children's education. Again, I ask you to consider reinstating the full-time school schedule as soon as possible. Thank you.
To the USD 450 Board of Education, I have one Shawnee Heights student, a 7th grader. My employer has made accommodations for me to work from home. In addition, my mother, a retired high school math teacher, lives a short distance away and is available to help. Our situation should be ideal for navigating the district's hybrid learning scenario. It should be working for us, but it's not. My bright, eager-to-learn daughter, who has always loved school, is confused and demoralized on a daily basis. Despite efforts to create structured learning within our home, she craves the structure and face-to-face interaction only in-person learning can provide. If this school model is causing difficulty in our situation, what is it going to do? What is it doing to students whose situation are less than ideal? I'm concerned about those students. I'm struggling to ensure my daughter I'm struggling to ensure my daughter is current on her schoolwork. What's happening with the students who don't have a parent able to do that? How far behind will they get before something changes? In particular, regarding my daughter's grade, I'm concerned about how the 7th grade class is adjusting to the different learning environment found at the middle school and high school levels. I'm concerned that the 7th graders will silo into elementary groups because they haven't been given the opportunity to meet and form friendships with the students from the other elementary schools. How will this impact the students in this grade for their remaining 6 years at Shawnee Heights? I'm also concerned about the teachers and staff. I'm constantly emailing questions to the school. How many emails are they receiving from other parents? Do they have time to respond to all this confusion? Is this learning model sustainable for the teachers and staff? As a child of a high school math teacher, I know the difficulties in finding qualified teachers, particularly in certain subjects like math and science. How long will it be before the teachers are burnt out and seek other employment or retire? If this happens, will the district even be able to fill these positions? For these reasons and many others, I am requesting that USD 450 provide full-time in-person learning for our students. I am a member of the Facebook group Shawnee Heights Parents in Support of In-Person Learning. This group grew to over 400 members within the first 24 hours, which speaks for itself. I would like my support of USD 450 students returning to full-time in-person learning recorded at the school board meeting on September 21st, 2020. This is Amy Kramer.
I have an email written by Krista Krugel. To whom it may concern, I'm the proud mom of 3 children in the Shawnee Heights School District. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the Shawnee Heights board members, the educators, and staff during this difficult time. All your hard work has not gone unnoticed by myself and others. However, I feel like I am the minority in this subject. I was asked to write an email in support of full-time learning in the traditional school setting. I unfortunately cannot do that with 100% certainty, as I don't know what the right option is for our children, our teachers, and our community. I've seen many emails and posts on social media in regards to parents' unhappiness with the current school situation. I'm saddened by the amount of negativity and hostility that our educational system is victim to right now. Currently, I have an 8th, 6th, and 1st grader. I can say that my 8th grader has adjusted well with the hybrid model, and I've seen benefits from this option. My 6th grader is also doing well with the hybrid model. My 1st grader does require more attention. She is in daycare during the day and requires more structure. We can all agree that socialization at this age is important too. However, I do not expect my daycare provider to become her teacher either. She is there to guide and assist as she can. I have an open relationship with all my kids' teachers, primarily in the elementary school. They all have been wonderful, supportive, and accommodating to struggles we have encountered with online learning. I now may have to take extra time with my daughter on the weekends to make sure all her work is done before returning to school for 2 days, but I do it, and I'm not going to complain about it because I know the educators are doing their job to the best of their ability. I am fearful about the kids going back to school because of COVID-19. I'm fearful that there are kids that are falling through the cracks that need extra care and guidance and who are not being challenged enough with the online hybrid option, but I can't say it isn't the right option. I feel that this situation has opened the door to many options, that there is not just one way to learn, teach, and be successful. None of this is easy, and we can't make decisions on what is best based for our children out of peer pressure in our school system, our community, or others. I entrust the decision to my teachers, my educators, and those who are trying to keep everybody safe. I wrote this email with no suggestion, motive, or demands, but more of as just a voice from our parents who sees all that you are doing, and although not perfect for everyone all the time, it is greatly appreciated, and I applaud the Shawnee Heights School District.
I just wanted to touch base. I have a 6th grader and a junior at the high school. My 6th grader is hanging in there with a good attitude. Sometimes she complains about not knowing how to get into assignments. Now on to my junior. He is not doing well with the remote learning at all. He is my kid that does not enjoy school at all, but when we talk about it, he will tell you he would rather be in school in a class. He struggles with not having a teacher to ask questions to. He feels that having to ask questions through email is hard, and you never know how long it will take for the teacher to get back to him. He is one that has stayed after school or goes in before school to ask questions. He is not able to do that so far this year. He has one class that has a Zoom time, and it is scheduled on Wednesday morning. He goes to Washburn Tech Wednesday morning. When asked about it, he was told he could email. When I connected with the counselor about him struggling in the class and he has no way of getting with teacher on remote day but email, her suggestion was to drop class and take it his senior year. This is not an option. He has all his science classes, and not taking math for a year and a half will not do him any good. When asking about working with a teacher at the school on a remote, I was told not an option and no options for a tutor Zoom or in person. I know the teachers and staff are really trying, and we are trying to do the best we can at home, but this is not working for the teachers or kids, and something needs to change. I feel that it's time to get back to school full-time for the parents of kids that are comfortable sending them. For us, I think she intends to say my kids need to be in school full-time to have a successful year. I am a member of the Facebook group Shawnee Heights Parents in Support of In-Person Learning. This group grew to 525 members in over 24 hours, which speaks for itself. I would like to support USD 450 students returning to full-time in-person learning recorded in the school board meeting on September 21st, 2020. This is Angie Keithley.
Hello, we are writing this email in favor of safely returning to in-person learning as soon as possible. Our students, kindergarten and 6th grade, are not progressing with hybrid learning as they would be in the classroom 5 days a week. We have had emotional breakdowns, and specifically the younger one not understanding the whys. Therefore, they are bored, unmotivated, and not focused. Keeping a 6th grader motivated is always challenging. In their minds, home is home and school is school. When you blend them together, it creates a stressful environment that leads to a lack of motivation and desire to learn. We are also working on schoolwork into the late evening, early evenings, with overlaps with family time, kids' downtime, and extracurricular activities. In the words of our 6th grader, this is too much stress and I feel like I'm failing. As parents that are fortunate to work from home for the time being, we feel the pressure to teach, perform, and instruct as an educated classroom teacher would. It is overwhelming, time-consuming, has affected each of our performance in our careers. We know this is a sacrifice for our children, but this is not the way it has to be or should be. We know the school teachers and staff are doing the best they can, and we appreciate their willingness and positive outlook. However, they are stretched thin, and too much is being asked of them. This is a difficult process for all. However, with your support, our kids can go back to 5 days a week in the classroom. We can resume with precautions and safety measures in place. This family is also part of the Facebook group. I don't think we'll read all those each time, Sarah.
Okay.
Just note that they're part of the group, the Washburn family.
Good morning. It has been brought to my attention that other schools locally are changing back to in-person school 5 days a week. I truly believe that Shawnee Heights should follow their lead and allow their students to do the same. Hybrid learning is not working for our family. My husband works nights and I am leaving for training. This means that everything will fall on him and our babysitter, which is not fair. We are not being paid extra to pay our babysitters extra to have to be teachers also. Oklahoma has been doing in-person school since day one of this school year, and it's going well. The fear-mongering has to stop. Our kids need socialization. They need to be in class so that when they need help, the teacher is right there. I can't imagine this being an easy task for teachers either, having to plan 2 different types of learning for the week. We pay taxes every year for our kids to be able to go to school. The schools need to open back up. As parents, we already have a lot on our plate. We are a double working household, and so are a lot of other households. Please consider opening the schools full time. Sincerely, Daisy Parrish.
Hello, I currently have a 5th grade boy at Barryton Elementary and a 7th grade girl at Shawnee Heights Middle School. We are currently doing the hybrid model, and they both attend in-person school on Thursday and Friday. Both my husband and I work full-time while trying to homeschool both children. I've never been more stressed or frustrated in my life than I am right now. It has put us in a very hard situation where our children need to be educated, but we as parents also need to work and be able to pay our bills to be able to take care of our children. I know the teachers are in the same situation. They're being asked to do 3 different types of schooling as well as take care of their children and educate their children all at the same time. It is absolutely heartbreaking to watch my children struggle and just want to give up because they are not getting the education they need and deserve. They are struggling with their social and mental well-beings by not being able to interact with their peers and have the in-person direction from a teacher. Sitting on a screen doing random work with links inside links and videos upon videos is not enough to provide the education that they need and they deserve. Please see our children back to in-person school. Thanks, Melinda Warren. And she's also a member of the Facebook group Shawnee Heights Parents in Support of In-Person Learning.
To whom it may concern, I am a parent to a 4th and 6th grader at Barryton Elementary. I am writing with concern for my children's education. I have given the hybrid learning what I would consider a fair attempt. We have been working at making this our new normal for 3 weeks now and striving to have a positive mindset. It's had its good moments, but it's primarily been nothing short of a struggle. Both my children are quick learners and very intelligent. School has never been a problem for them and has always been something they both truly enjoy. This model is ruining that for them. Emphasize. On their own and teach it to themselves at the age of 9 and 11. Emphasize. Then when they can't, it's, Mom, this isn't making sense, and I have to step in. It's then taking their mom away from being mom. I am forced to be their teacher and enforcer of material I am in no way familiar with or even educated on how to present in a way that teaches them and not just gives them the answer. I am in no way a child educator. This results in arguments, frustration, and tears for all of us. Forcing this on me or any parent is not fair to my children, myself, or our relationship. It's absolutely not okay, and it's not mentally or emotionally healthy for any child or family. They are simply completing task lists each remote day. There is no real lesson or retention. How is this education? Something that historically has taken them minutes is taking them an hour, if not more. This is by no fault of our educators. They are doing the best they can with regard to the strict guidelines set by the school board, but being able to be the teacher, all of our students need to get a proper education and elevate their knowledge level is not obtainable in this model. It's asinine. Our children and our teachers deserve normal for all of these reasons and so many more. How is it that Walmart, Dillon's, and other shopping places can figure out ways to operate at normal volumes for viability, but the school system can't for the sake of our district's children? We have to do better. This is another member of the school, of the Facebook group. Her name is Brianna Brown.
This email is from Charlotte Cochran. Good morning. I just wanted to pass along my recommendation for full-time in-person learning. The district has done a great job with trying to accommodate as much as possible. That is not a concern at all. I feel it is important for all children to have daily interaction with their teachers and peers. This is needed for intellectual and mental health. Unfortunately, I see the teachers are stretched thin with their daily planning. When students are in the classroom, they are not truly being taught and instructed to learn from an iPad. For the teacher's sake and the students, we need our normal in-class lectures and peer interaction. This person is also a member of the Facebook group Shawnee Heights Parents in Support of In-Person Learning. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Clinton Barnes. I wanted to first start off by saying thank you for your help during this COVID-19 era. Even though we are all struggling during this pandemic, I feel that most of us parents in the district have a new respect and appreciation for what the Board of Education, administration, and all teachers do for our children to help them through this rough time. Now, as a person who works for a huge corporation, I strongly believe and understand the importance of having standardization along with process and procedures and having protocols set in place. I do have a few concerns that I would like to address, and they are the following. One, after taking all the current precautions and trying to keep our kids safe in school, why is it okay for middle school students to not wear masks during PE, but our high school students are told they have to wear a mask during PE and other sports practices, such as volleyball, at the high school level? Two, why is it okay to have no restriction or very little restriction on who can go to a middle school football game, but yet we have restrictions at the high school level? I do understand high school football games bring more crowds, but currently our middle school has very little restriction. In fact, the only restriction they have is to wear a mask and practice social distancing. Lastly, I think we need to remember what unified school district really means. We as the Shawnee Heights community need to be unified or come up with a standardization throughout all the schools during these hard times. Just simply looking at the questions above that I have listed in this email and also listening to some of the other parents speaking their concerns on how things are being handled, I feel that there shouldn't be separate rules for each school, each grade, and each sport. However, we do need to figure out best practices within this district, and if we set a rule for the high school students or any high school event, then it should be followed clear on down to the elementary schools. I am a strong believer that with your help and guidance during these hard times, we can fix these issues and continue to head in the right direction. Thanks for your time and consideration, Clinton Barnes.
Dear Superintendent and Board, my son is lucky I've started a learning pod with friends, and sometimes our kids enjoy our school better than real school. Why? Because they miss seeing friends. We are also ensuring our kids get their work done. However, technology is failing even the best of families. Zern has deleted done assignment levels on 4 different kids in our group, and Seesaw has done the same, but less often. Teams has been a failure when trying to connect a class of more than 9 kids. Teachers are stressed, parents are stressed, and kids are bearing the brunt of it all. I would like to be involved in helping the district figure out how to get the kiddos back in school quickly. My husband and I are both entrepreneurs that see the world from a different lens. We overcome hurdles daily that others see as roadblocks. If other districts in our county have figured out a way, we can and need to as well. If you could please respond with a list of problems such as busing, class size, etc., I can begin brainstorming immediately. Thank you, Kelly Robbins.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to read my email. I am a parent of 2 children in Shawnee Heights School District. I have a senior who is currently enrolled in hating the hybrid model. Unfortunately, my son is stuck since he is a senior and wants to participate in sports. However, he is missing out on interacting with other students, staff, etc. I am struggling as a parent of a teenage boy, and as you know, a lot of teenagers already deal with addiction to video games and screen time in general, and now being forced to do the majority of schoolwork online is a very difficult task as a parent. He often complains of neck and back pain as well as headaches from trying to work online all day. I would also like to point out that my son missed an in-person day and nobody noticed, emphasized. These poor teachers cannot even keep track of who is supposed to be where and when. Do you understand how many students are going to fall through the cracks with this current system? I also have a 4th grade student who I chose to homeschool this semester because I refused to subject him to the requirements elementary students are expected to adjust to at this time. And I want to be very clear, it is complete and utter nonsense that students of staff members are allowed to be in school 5 days a week. Members of the Board of Education, USD 450, I urge you to reconsider the current state of our school district. I would love to enroll my 4th grader again, but I'm currently having great success with homeschooling, will no doubt serve as a resource for other parents who are considering this option more viable as the current situation in our district progresses. I am a member of the Facebook group as well. Thank you for your time, DeAndre Cooper Hostler.
Dear Board, moving the district to in-person learning is a very significant process. I'd encourage the board and administration to move forward quickly with returning all students, both primary and secondary, that have special needs through IEPs to the classroom as soon as possible. This group of students should have the opportunity to work in person, in teams, during remote learning days until all students can be returned to school. The ability to adapt and transition is much more difficult for these students, and the impact of them falling behind at home is greater. Although this is difficult for everyone, studies have shown that kids in special education are the most negatively impacted by remote learning. Sincerely, Kristen and Sean Shore.
I appreciate you taking the time during your board meetings to set aside your laptop, tablets, phones, etc., and listen to the concerns and feedback from the parents, guardians of the children you represent from an administrative standpoint. With the current options given to us from our school district, we chose the hybrid option, but with a twist. We started a learning pod in our home. We have 6 children attending from 4 different families in 5 different classrooms ranging from 1st through 6th grade. This email is provided to you so we can share thoughts and concerns from the first 2 weeks of remote learning. We are fortunate to have the experience of a long-tenured elementary school secretary to help organize and facilitate the daily lesson plans. We are also fortunate, in fact, that several parents in our pod have the flexibility in their work schedule to be on site with the pod to help the children with the daunting and almost impossible task of navigating the multiple learning platforms given to them. I say daunting only from the 6th grader point of view. Daunting meaning that child is in tears because they have gone through 5 screens to try and log in unsuccessfully for a reading assignment. For the 1st grader, it is impossible, so the on-site parent must do it all. Impossible from a 2nd grader standpoint, to where their password for one of the applications is 5375B4039. All that said, we will continue to do what we feel is best for our children's education and social growth based on the abilities and resources we have. Is it ideal? No. The district's attempts to limit exposure and reduce cross-contamination has forced families to make decisions like we have, and has caused greater risk for exposure. Like I mentioned before, we have children from 4 different families in 5 different classrooms with roughly 8 kids per classroom group. But what about those children that are left in front of a computer in their rooms for 6 hours a day to learn? What about those parents that don't have the same resources to put together a pod, so they send them to a local daycare or camp that takes up to 20 kids per week from any district in the county? Your decision to allow hybrid as an option is putting our kids at greater risk. With safety measures you have put in place, temperature checks, masks, and based on the current data provided to us from the CDC, our children should be allowed to return to full-time in-person learning immediately. Please consider allowing our children, your children, their children, to return to in-person school, if not for us, and for the children who depend on the emotional support of their teacher, for the children whose families cannot afford any other option than to leave their 5th grader at home all day while they must go to work, for the children who have hid in their room under their bed for 6 months because we have scared them almost to death, for the children that do not know why their friends will not play with them anymore, for our children, give their childhood education back to them. Respectfully, Ian and Kelly Robbins, Shez parents.
First off, I would like to say thank you to everyone who is working hard at keeping Shawnee Heights afloat during such an odd time. Your hard work and devotion to the students is very appreciated. I know there is a huge push to get students back into the building full time, and while I understand the need for families with younger students, that push does load, they feel they are able to get more done. I hope that in making the decision for getting students back into the buildings, that there are several options for all parents and all students. Not everyone is ready to come back full time. As far as the workload, a lot of high school students are struggling. We are averaging 5 to 7 assignments per class per day. Our girls are spending 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week, trying to stay afloat. At this pace, I worry they will burn out fairly quickly. Girls are taking high-level classes, including some college classes as well, but we are not the only family struggling with the workloads. I know at least a dozen middle school kids who feel the same. We need some consistency, and we need to lessen the busy work. I know it's only the 4th week and it's trial and error, but from here out, I hope we will find a way to ease up some and let the students succeed. They need to be able to find balance with school, jobs, extracurriculars, and find ways to enjoy school again. Thank you for your time. Liz Dodds.
Dear school board and administrators, as a music teacher and parent of 2 students in the district, I am writing to share my perspective on the sudden shift to planning for a return to full-time on-site school. First, I want to thank you for all the great deal of planning and investment that went into the hybrid plan. I have been amazed and truly proud of what we've accomplished. As an educator and parent, the plan is everything to me. I've been a certified teacher for over 20 years. Want and need to keep my chosen career until my retirement. I was very scared to return to teaching live. I have allergies and asthma, and my parents are very high risk. The millions of details to make the hybrid plan work have come together to make me feel relatively safe. The challenges of teaching live and online have been almost unbearable at times, but I can do hard things, and I refuse to let these challenges beat me. I'm not going to let this year be the end of my career. As an elementary music teacher, I see all 1st through 6th grade students. If we return to all students attending together, it would put many of us at an extremely high risk. There is no quality way for us to provide planned time without exposing those of us who are considered specials to hundreds of children every day. Another consideration regarding the non-classroom teachers is that many of us also have the added responsibility of teaching the fully remote students music, PE, SPED library, counselor, reading. If we return to teaching a full school 5 days a week, we will have more than a full-time teaching load. When we created the remote learning option, we did not hire additional teachers. The plan is workable as long as we stay hybrid or online. I also want to bring up the extreme difficulty of switching schedules. It will require a huge effort by teachers to change everything again. It does not make good sense to rush into this, especially since it would greatly increase the likelihood that we will have to go to fully online. Once we get an outbreak and teachers and staff start having to quarantine, we will have to shut down. Keeping hybrid is truly the best option for longevity and for stability. It would be far better to stay hybrid all year than to try full-time, then have to go fully online, then back to hybrid. Until the infection rates stabilize, we should not be considering a return to full school. We are all suffering, but it is not because of decisions by our Shawnee Heights administrators, school board, or professional staff. It's the pandemic. People are grieving the loss of life as we once knew it. It's not what any educator or any parent wants. None of us like this, but we've got to keep safety as our number one priority. Sincerely, Jana Bandman.
Dear USD 450 board members, the hybrid model that we are currently doing is not working for my family. I have a kindergartner and a 2nd grader in school. We also have a 2-year-old at home. We are all struggling with schoolwork, and it is frustrating for everyone. My boys love school, but do not enjoy doing schoolwork at home. They would both benefit more by being to school full time. They are not learning the same as they would in school. This is going to cause them to fall behind. There have been many tears from feeling overwhelmed by everyone. I am feeling stressed as a parent. I work 2 nights a week as a nurse in the hospital. Some nights I work 12 hours and then come and teach both of them all day. I am exhausted and stressed. I am constantly having to help both of them during the day along with entertaining a 2-year-old. Teachers are having to do way more work than before, which could turn into burnout. The teachers have been great with everything they are having to deal with, but I think it would be best for everyone to be in school full time. Our children's education is important, and we need to put it first. I am a member of the Shawnee Heights Facebook group, Shawnee Heights Parents in Support of In-Person Learning. Thank you for your time, Melissa Howard.
I would like to see the kids go back to school full-time in person. In my opinion, the online school is a complete waste. As they are kids. In my opinion, the online school is a complete waste as the kids are doing maybe 2 to 3 hours of work for the day. What about classes like woodshop, welding, metalsmithing, which should all be hands-on? I'm a welder by trade, and some of the paperwork that was sent home last year was useless. 90% of that will never be used in a weld shop. My kids do not like the online school and would like to go back to school like it should be and send them back with no masks. Kids' faces are sweating and getting acne, which is usually the worst in the kids' teenage years. This could lead to more problems like depression and getting picked on because they have acne. Be a leader, not a follower. Stand up and make USD 50 a district leader and get the kids back to learning in person.
This email is from Steve Dodd. I first want to acknowledge and thank our teachers who are working very hard. Teachers and parents are overwhelmed and headed for burnout or worse. The students are losing ground mentally, socially, physically, and academically. For many, our Shawnee Heights family is not doing well. It seems to me everyone is pointing fingers at each other, not solving the problems. After talking to all, the Kansas School Board is pointing the finger back to the local school boards, saying they make all the decisions about in-person, hybrid, remote learning. Anyone upset with the 6.5 hours, the same board is pointing the fingers back to the state legislature and governor because they can change the law. The health department states these are their recommendations, but the school board has the final say. Shawnee Heights School Board is pointing the finger back to the state school board and county health department recommendation. Their hands are tied, but the buck stops with our administrators and board members. I would like this question to be answered by the board and administrators today. If a tornado just ripped through and destroyed the administration building, the high school, the middle school, and the bus barn, how would the district handle this? This happened after hours, so no injuries. I would assume the IT technology department would have been wiped out too. We have over 1,000 kids to relocate to another building or buildings, and they need to transport all students to schools. This should be a reasonable risk. I would assume you have put together a disaster recovery plan to handle these types of emergencies. Assuming that you have that plan, what are the options to relocate teachers, staff, and students, and the bus transportation for all students? There are other buildings in our community to relocate our students to. We should be partnering with churches, businesses, county community buildings. I'm sure that parents' support could help in getting these facilities up and running. We can move desks, clean buildings, get supplies, whatever has to be done. There are people willing to transport kids to schools. We could brainstorm and come up with solutions. We should allow teachers and students with health problem issues to do remote learning, but for others, remote hybrid is not a viable solution. This emergency will most likely continue for another year. We need a short-term plan that gets kids back into school where they belong. Remote and hybrid learning is not the answer. I encourage everyone to help get a plan together that the parents can assist with to get these kids back into school. I reject the idea that this is the best we can do. I'm a member of the Facebook group Shawnee Heights Parents in Support of In-Person Learning.
I am writing to you to make a request to reinstate in-person learning for USD 450 5 days a week. I am a mother of a third grader at Tecumseh South, as well as a small business owner that is currently run out of our home. My daughter being home 60% of the week has had a severe financial and emotional impact to not only my small business, but the well-being of our family. Our home is no longer a place where our family can gather at the end of the day and relax. The time spent both facilitating my daughter's online education as well as caring for my toddler has taken away time I am able to run my business. This has a direct impact on the bottom line of my company, which adds to the stress we're already feeling at home. Setting aside the financial impacts, my daughter is struggling to find her way without social interactions of her classroom. While I am thankful for technology and the availability of programs like Zoom, it's our family's opinion that the best life lessons are learned from social interactions. We strongly feel more harm is currently being done by keeping them out of the classroom than the risks from COVID. Based on the current models from surrounding schools currently back full-time in person, Topeka as well as Kansas City, there are multiple examples of how we can safely return to school. I feel that sending out another survey, as indicated in the most recent email that was pushed out by the administration, is just another delay at getting these kids back to where they need to be. Why is a survey needed? One was already done. The answer is very clear. The majority want kids back at school. Why would that change after numbers have improved? It is so simple. The risks associated with keeping all of these children out of school far outweigh the risks COVID may have on them. Let's not forget the amount of work being asked of the teachers. If parents, students are in tears every week, I cannot even imagine what the staff is going through trying to juggle in-person and online platforms. I do appreciate the difficult position the school as well as teachers have been put in this year. However, given the data trending positive over the last couple of months, our family feels as though it is time to send our children back to school full-time. I am a member of the Facebook group Shawnee Heights Parents in Support of In-Person Learning. Exhausted parent Jenna Murray.
Hello, I want to start by saying I'm so grateful to our school board, administrators, teachers, all staff for everything you've done to try and make this hybrid learning situation work. I know it wasn't an easy decision to make, and I know that everyone involved is doing what they think is best for our kiddos. I have a 6th grader and a kindergartner at Tecumseh North. Quite honestly, my 6th grader is doing okay. He's very self-motivated, and other than really missing his friends, he's hanging in there. Generally, he is in some enrichment programs that our district offers, and he is missing out on those right now. I do worry that he won't be as challenged as he needs to be with this hybrid approach to learning. My kindergartner is struggling, and this work-at-home mom is struggling too. My husband owns a business, so the at-home teaching rests 100% with me. I have a full-time job in addition to trying to teach and help my sweet kindergartner. She can't read all the instructions to know what to do next, so my workday is filled with numerous interruptions, wondering what she can do next to stay busy. Since kindergarten is such a critical age for social and emotional development, I worry about what this hybrid learning will do for her overall development. I also think these teachers are overloaded. I can't imagine trying to come up with curriculum the students can do at home, plus navigating all the technical issues students are facing. The kids are weary, the teachers are weary, and the parents are weary. I'm a member of the Facebook group Shawnee Heights Parents in Support of In-Person Learning. Thank you so much for all you and the rest of the board are doing. Best, Kim Konecki.
Dear USD 450 school board members, you have been tasked with making some of the most difficult decisions for our Shawnee Heights community in 2020. No one imagined the challenges COVID-19 would bring nor the sacrifices we would all have to make, but now it's time for us to choose to live life over fear and shift back to educating our students in the environment they deserve, back in the classroom for full-time on-site learning. What we are doing now is unsustainable. Students are overwhelmed with remote learning and yearn to be among their peers. Parents are struggling with balancing work, homeschooling, and family life. Teachers are overloaded and being expected to plan online lessons and in-person lessons while also trying to survive remote learning with their own children, too. Staff in our district are stretched thin and are expected to do more than ever before. What we are doing now is unsustainable. Our 4th grader at Tecumseh South would be making far greater strides in person with his teacher and with his peers. He is a different kiddo on his 2 in-person days and asks all of the time when he gets to go back to school every day. This is not how a child should be learning. Our 7th grader is navigating middle school online when she should be experiencing life as a preteen and learning the ropes of changing classes every hour, lockers, electives, and new friendships. Our usual self-motivated student is frustrated and overwhelmed with the online coursework. Being able to see and talk to her teachers is what she craves on her remote days. What we are doing now is unsustainable. Students in the Topeka area are going 5 days a week right now. Parochial schools, Care Paravel, Topeka 501 brought pre-K and kindergarten back on site September 16th. 1st through 5th graders will be back full-time and on site September 28th. Seaman School District will be having pre-K through 6th grade back full-time on site by October 5th with plans for older grades presented on September 28th. With the proper precautions in place, Shawnee Heights can and your constituents. It's time to discuss a timeline now. Utilize the staff survey results to start talking tonight about a timeline that gets our students back to full on-site learning sooner than later. Please do not wait until October 5th to make these vital decisions. We are members of the Facebook group Shawnee Heights Parents in Support of In-Person Learning. Respectfully, Jenny and Tim Watts.
I just read that Seaman School District is implementing full-time school for their students. When is Shawnee Heights going to follow suit? We have 3 kids at the school, and all of us, our children and us as parents, would love school to return to normal. We have extended family who are also part of the Shawnee Heights School District and feel the same and would support full-time school. Kim and Alan New, parents of Ethan and Allison New and Elise Strickland.
I currently have a first grade student at Tecumseh South Elementary. We have been struggling with online learning since March. I am the only parent able to stay home and help while attempting to work my full-time job. We are both doing our best. However, it is no comparison to the advantages he would have being in class 5 days a week. There are far too many distractions in a child's home setting. It is where they do everything but school and has an effect on concentration. He is lacking stories and real world examples from teachers and other students, providing a greater understanding. It is taking away the opportunity to connect with, problem solve, and network with other students with a wide range of backgrounds. This is having an effect on his ability to build relationships and relate to others. We have enough division in today's climate. I feel this is going to compound that issue. The stress is affecting my child's mental health and mine and is straining our relationship. It leaves me less room, less time to be mom because I am too busy being a teacher, which I am not equipped to do. We waste precious time trying to switch gears and return to mother and son versus teacher and student. Please consider going back to full-time in-person learning as quickly as possible. I'm not sure why this conversation and decision to do so cannot take place at the upcoming board meeting. Distributing surveys seems time-consuming and quite frankly like an attempt to stall for more time. Full transparency to parents and students should be extended. We need to have faith you are all working as quickly as you can to get kids back to the setting they deserve. If there are parents who wish to keep their kids home full-time, let them. If there are parents want to continue with hybrid, let them. Those of us who want to our child back in school full-time should have that opportunity afforded to us as well. Please take our feelings and thoughts into consideration. I appreciate your time. I am a member of the Facebook group, Shawnee Heights Parents in Support of In-Person Learning. Thank you, Jennifer Ingebretson. I think that's how you say it.
I'm a member of the Facebook group Shawnee Heights Parents in Support of In-Person Learning. As a grandparent of one of the middle school students, I feel it is time to bring all the students back to school. My grandchild is a good student, but is struggling with remote learning. The anxiety and stress it is creating is beyond what they need in their age, in their life at this age. You cannot tell a young person of this age to watch the video and do the work. A majority of the students will be unable to properly learn this way. I know for a fact that there are other school districts in Kansas that are doing in-person learning. It is time for USD 450 to step up and do what is right for the students. Mary Rockwell, grandparents.
Good evening. We are a family of 5 students in Shawnee Heights schools, and we struggle day by day with remote learning and app issues. Unfortunately, our residence area is located in a dead zone, so this means no internet service and bad connection to receive and dial phone calls. We tried different companies to get some type of service since March. We tried the hotspot from T-Mobile offered by Shawnee Heights Middle School, and still not able to get any type of signal. I was lucky to have the first week off from work to help my kids with their work on iPads and the homework package, but I also have to go back to work to provide for our family. It's not that we didn't try or we don't care, but our kids need the school interaction and able to actually learn. So I ask you to take consideration for those like us. We can't get the service due to living areas. Again, we all deal with different issues, and we are trying our best to come up with a solution. We are in this together as parents, teachers, and students. Thank you in advance, Jessica Fodovich.
Dear board member, I appreciate all the efforts that are being put out by Barrington Elementary School staff for my pre-K and first grade granddaughters. Trying to educate from the school which is provided, but we are even having trouble with it as well, and have spent time on the phone with Mrs. Baker trying to get it working. As of right now, it still isn't working. I have to travel to my business for the girls to get their assignments done, then my work isn't getting done, since so much time is spent on school. My husband and I are raising our granddaughters. We both have medical issues. My husband has kidney problems and I have heart problems. The stress alone is more than I can handle right now. I worry that if the children continue school at home, they will suffer and not have the education and learning that they need to have and deserve to have. Having a pre-K and first grader at home at such a young age and trying to teach them is hard on all of us, parents and grandparents. If nothing else, please let the younger grades get in their classroom full time. From worried grandparents.
Good evening. I would just like to say thank you. Thank you to all staff members at USD 450 for all of your hard work and tireless efforts to adapt and help our children adapt to the craziness that has become our lives. I see the comments of parents on social media. While some are expressing opinions with respect and decency, I am disturbed at how angry and out of line some of their comments come across. I would hate for you all to think that everyone in that group feels the same way. I would like you to know that we, my whole family, appreciate you all. Although my daughter prefers to be at school 5 days a week, we understand why we are doing what we are, ideal or not, and that you all are dealing with it, quote unquote, also. I am hoping and praying that you are receiving more emails like this one. Keep doing what you need to. Some of us are behind you 100%. Sincerely, Carmen Proctor.
Emails from Tanya Williams. Shawnee Heights board members. As a graduate of Shawnee Heights, I decided to raise my children in the district, so I knew that they would get a great education like I did. Out of my 7 children, 3 have graduated so far. 3 are currently in the early elementary school. With that being said, the early years in school are the most important. It sets the tone for how our students see how school is supposed to go and how it's supposed to be. Things are not looking very good for them. 2 of my 3 younger children lost out on their last semester of kindergarten and had to do remote learning. Even as an educator myself, that didn't go well. You see, I have high schoolers, and I was going from seniors online to kindergartners in my living room. They were missing out on so much. Now I have 2 first grades and a preschooler. They don't understand why they can't be at school every day while I have to go. While their teachers have to be. Finding someone who can and wants to stay home and help me teach them while I go to work was not an easy task. I am watching my children struggle because they are frustrated that they don't understand something online and there is no teacher for them. There is only mommy. They know and understand that mommy is a teacher, but not their teacher. Our teachers are stressed by online learning and in-class learning, writing IMPs, lesson plans, making sure every kid has their mask on in their own personal lives. Please let's take some stress away and bring our students back to the classroom. I'm a member of the Shawnee Heights Facebook group, Shawnee Heights Parents in Support of In-Person Learning.
I don't have, that was my last. All right.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Thank you for everybody who submitted an email. We have 1 parent signed up for public comment, and that would be, is it Bridget Umscheid? Okay.
Good evening. First, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to speak. I felt it was important to come in person, as in my head I have many, many thoughts on many fronts. I am a small business owner, and I do try to tackle things with solutions rather than just come to you with problems. I do have a freshman. He is a very bright kid. He does very well in school, but he too is struggling. I know in one of the last board meetings it was described that the apps are no longer able to be used due to the different formats and everything that have been used. By going between the different slides, it gets very confusing, especially where he has had some actual assignments with the same title names, where he assumed one would be turned in and it wasn't. So things like that are very confusing. I don't know if there's any way to clean that up. I am not a tech person, but that could be a suggestion to try to look at. What can we do to be making their transitions between sliding over here, writing on this worksheet, over here to this worksheet, getting it submitted properly? Those are very big frustrations, especially when a kid is a perfectionist. The other thing I would like to discuss is when I'm reading the posts on the Facebook page, I am also trying to imagine the fact that maybe we need to be separating out hybrid as an issue, as in 3 days at home, 2 days, 3 days at home, 2 days at school, and we should separate out our flipped classroom learning, our mastery learning platform that we are using. Is there another form of platform we could be using to make everybody's life easier? I do not know. I don't know what is available out there. But it's a suggestion to maybe try to ease the burden. I had talked to Ed West after, I believe, the July 27th board meeting, because there again, there was no mention of what the average student's life was going to look like. I applaud the special ed teachers for having the descriptiveness of charts. I applaud them for having the decency to reach out to their parents to sit there and discuss what their role was going to be in the IEPs. I was waiting on my seat for the moment you were going to discuss what my kid's life was going to look like, and it wasn't there. So that Tuesday, I took the opportunity to talk to Ed West to find out what was our life going to look like. And it was disappointing to me to find out that we were going to be learning by video. I don't know how many of you have actually sat down and looked at the videos. I have been doing them with my child for the mere fact that they are very confusing. The other thing that I am watching is most of them are ranging from 7 to 15 minutes, so you sit and think, oh, that should be done very quickly. It isn't. When they're going through these videos, the retention is not there. He can watch something, it pauses, it asks you a question of what you just saw. He can answer that. It goes on, there's another pause, another question. That is totally fine. Grades look great, so on the surface it's great. When I come home at night, we spend 3 to 4 hours going through what he learned that day. I am reteaching it because the retention is only halfway there. That's a problem for the kids. I'm talking about, I have an honor student. He's in an AP class. These are things that are very concerning. As a freshman, these grades are going to follow him to where his college life will lead. If we fail him now, there is no recovery to this. And I know I'm only speaking for my freshmen, but I know that there are other people out there who are feeling the same way, because every year is important. There are milestones socially, emotionally, fundamentally in our education that are needed. So I am here to offer solutions. I am here to be a sounding board, to say, what are your problems? What can we do? Please include the parents that are on the edge of their seats, trying to figure out the best path for their own children as well. I do feel I was failed in that aspect. I do. Moving forward, please consider some of those things. I do have a lot of other thoughts in my head. You know, can we be Zooming some of the kids? I know that you had mentioned that somebody wrote in that they're in dead spots. They can't get this. So if moving kids 5 days into a classroom is not an option for everybody, what can we do as a Zoom? At least the kids will be getting a teacher every single class period, 5 days a week. Not the average of an hour and 20 minutes, I believe, is what their classes are, once a week. There's a big, big difference in the teaching capabilities of that. The kids who are in dead zones, would they be eligible to be the first kids in the classrooms? Because they'd be falling behind by not getting the service. Is that a solution to start with? I don't know. But I just want you to know that people like me are out there wanting to think outside the box, wanting to be part of the solution, not just a problem, not just a complainer. I just hope you sincerely take all of that to heart. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, we will move on. If I can get my agenda. To action items, business by consent.
Move approval.
Got a motion by Jason. Do I have a second?
Well, second.
Second by Rosa. All in favor, show of hands. 6-0. Right, moving on to approved nursing contract.
So this is a contract to continue full-time nursing services for .5 special education early childhood student. We utilize the same company and nurse that they're with in the mornings when he's not in school. We employ that nurse ourselves in the afternoon to keep that consistency Mornings are paid through an outside agency, and we pay for the afternoon part. So we recommend approval.
So moved.
Got a motion by Eric. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Got a second by Rocky. All in favor, show of hands. 6-0. Approve coronavirus relief contract.
So USD 450 is agreeing to be a subrecipient of federal dollars through the CARES Act. The contract spells out the requirements for spending our allocation of $837,730 in Spark money. So we'll recommend approval.
So moved.
Got a motion by Erica. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jason. All in favor, show of hands. 6-0. Item D, approve facility use request of JV football field.
Careperville Latin School approached us. They had been renting a facility in Topeka that they can no longer rent due to the COVID situation. So they were looking to be able to rent our JV football field for their football games. I believe they have a new program that they're trying to get going. They have agreed. We put a cost estimate together for them, and they've agreed to that. So we're just recommending approval. It's a field back in the back of the high school here we don't use for anything right now, and so I'd recommend approval on it.
Will they be required to follow the same guidelines that we have our other teams here follow?
Yes, they'll be following guidelines we have, yes.
Okay. Did I hear a motion by Eric? Oh, Jason, sorry. Motion by Jason, second by Eric. Are there any other questions?
Yes, I had a question. Do these games interfere with any of our scheduled games?
They're not. I'm not sure the dates interfere, but they'll be back in the back parking lot, so it shouldn't have any impact on us in the front side. Cody Whitney looked at all the dates and felt like they were workable.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, show of hands. Yes. All right, 6-0. Okay. Item E, approve USD 450 learning scenario movement.
So in the packet I gave you, first one shows the county scorecard, which is part of our scorecard. So the last 2-week numbers are there. Last week they were a score of a 16, which is right at the bottom of, or right at the top of orange. And this week's number decreased substantially to a score of 9. You can see that the number of cases went down about 60 cases in the county. And the percent positive cases also went down from 7.4% to 5.2%. With that, then the next sheet I believe you have there is our scorecard. So we take the average of the 2 weeks of the county scorecard, so the average of the 16 and 9 is 12.5. That puts us in our high level of orange. We look at then 2 school scenario pieces. What are the cases looking like in our schools, and how is our staff absenteeism? You can see below that the 2 weeks of cases at our district have been great. We've had 1 case in the last 2 weeks in our district. And then as far as staff absenteeism, it's been very low. We've had a couple of staff members quarantining, but that has not affected our ability to keep educating. So with those combined, my recommendation is that we stay in the yellow scenario, but toward the high end of it with hybrid learning.
So Matt, at what point, I guess with those county scores and combined with our other data, would you make a recommendation for us to move back to in-person learning?
Yeah, what we'd be looking at is getting that county scores. I'm going to flip back to that screen. As much as possible, at least down into that moderate level or lower. What those scores are looking at is the severity of spread in the county and the severity of the cases. So if we can keep those cases down in the county, that helps us feel comfortable then on going to ours and moving to that. You'll see on ours, we want to try to get down in at least that low yellow to start going to on-site learning. Mm-hmm. So again, it's kind of a call both ways. These aren't, we don't have any hard numbers to say this is when you get there per se. We did that intentionally because it's so hard to quantify it sometimes. But right now we're doing a great job in our district. If that keeps up and the county keeps going down a little bit, I wouldn't see any reason why we would get there pretty quick. But we always look at 2 weeks worth of data. That's a recommendation we've been given from the county to always look at 2 weeks worth of data. So I'd hope if the county can keep going down, we're optimistic, or I guess semi-optimistic that we can keep doing that. What we don't know is, Labor Day was just a few weeks ago. There's always a couple weeks delay on knowing how that's working. Right now, it looks nice, but hopefully that continues. But we're just not for sure yet. But we'll keep looking at that. But yeah, I think we got to get a little bit lower in order for me to say at least that on-site learning is an option.
Okay, so I know, so in Seaman, they've got, they're a comparable school size to us, and if they have success with their model with our, kind of likeness there, and the numbers in the county stay the same, and they don't see, they've got, right now they're very set up very similar to us. They got the classrooms are 6 feet social distancing, but now when they push everybody back into the classroom, that space will probably go back, probably down to a 3 foot distance, most likely. And if they have success, mitigating the risk, and the county numbers stay the same or maybe even increase, and they still don't see increased numbers, is that something, you would take into consideration into, if they're having success, maybe that's something Shawnee Hyde should look at and do also?
I think definitely we'll be watching what happens over there. They'll be using what we're going to talk about in a little bit is kind of the cohort group idea, where they're going to try to keep those elementary classes in what they call a cohort group, where the social distancing in that class group will be less. I think they were talking about, backing down to 3 feet. But you try to keep that group intact and not spreading around with other groups. So if you do have positive cases in that group, you may have to quarantine that whole group, but you don't have to quarantine other groups in the school. So it's a give and take a little bit, but I believe that's how they're working it. So yeah, we'll definitely be watching how it goes for them.
And we probably, if we brought everybody back into the classroom, do we even have enough space in our classrooms to at least give 3 feet of social distancing with the mask on for the students?
I believe for most classrooms we could be able to do that. I'd have to double check. Some of the high school groups get pretty big, but I believe the elementary ones, if the kids would that are on full remote,
right,
stayed full remote, it didn't choose to come back. There is some thought out there. Some of the full remotes did it just because they didn't want to do hybrid. So some of them may want to come back, but I believe we could do at least the 3 foot.
if we did bring everybody back, do we have the busing capacity to, based upon, how full the buses are now on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday? If we combine those, is the busing situation such that everybody would still be in their own seat or have their own seat available?
Kind of the idea with the cohort group idea is you don't want to mix the cohort groups. So yes, we would keep our busing the same. We would keep one student a seat unless they are a family member. And the reason that is because you don't want to mix those cohort groups. So then you kind of maintain that group consistency. So right now, yes, if we follow the guidelines we're proposing, maybe we would keep the busing the same. So that would require parents to support us on getting kids to school.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I have a gajillion questions. But thinking outside of the box, is there any way to keep the kids attending school, but can we have, what would it look like if we did half of the kids, mornings, and the ones that are attending the other days, they do the afternoons? And some of those, the children, the pre-K, kindergarten, elementary school levels can stay, but everybody who is Monday, Tuesday now goes Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday mornings. And the students that are full day Thursday, Friday, could they go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday afternoons? Then children can take their lunches home with them. Parents are able to only look for half of the day if they needed to. Students are in school half of the day. And we started with elementary school kids to see if that could be another option, and not mixing classes together. The class sizes would still be small, and students can still interact with the teachers half of the day, and then the other half comes in. I know that that's a lot, but it's another piece that I don't even know if we've even talked about that would help get students in class 4 days instead of 2 days.
That is something we did look at initially as our group. There are a couple things. One, we have to figure out some of the busing. Right now, our bus drivers are employed in the mornings and the afternoons, and many of them are actually like that part-time job, wouldn't want a full-time. Some of them work different jobs in the middle of the day. So if you're going to do 2 different bus routes, which you'd have those drivers driving pretty much full-time, we'd have to figure out how do we get enough drivers to do that. So that'd be something we'd have to think through. The benefit of that is kids are in school every day, which makes it simpler on them as far as the planning for the afternoons. It's a transition would have to be for teachers. In reading a lot of the survey comments from them, I think they're starting to fall into a pattern on the hybrid that they're feeling a little better about that, at least. That's what I was reading from a lot of the survey results, that to them changing is a worse thing than just trying to keep something for a while and work with it. So we'd have to see if that was something we wanted to do. I think there's pros and cons to everything, but there's things you just have to figure out in the way. The other thing that I remember was kind of the negative of that one is the whole idea of as much as possible doing that Wednesday for cleaning purposes. So we'd have to figure out how do you deal with the mornings and afternoons for cleaning if you change groups completely in the classroom. And then the last thing is just going to be figuring out the time frame of it. Is how does that work with stretching out your day? Does it stretch it out too much? Does it work or not? Because you'd actually send a group home with a group of bus drivers, and that same bus drivers would have to pick another group back up. So how much time does that take to accomplish that? Some of these routes are about an hour long right now. would that stretch your day out? So then it's not doable anymore for staffing purposes and things like that. But so we did look at it, but we decided that the hybrid that we chose we felt was a little more workable for everybody. But
I mean,
not
if
like
we
you can't.
have parents that are willing to drive their children to school and help out in that way and take on that responsibility, and that limits the number of stops and starts that the bus drivers have to do, it's just another, I mean, I know you guys looked at it, but I'm just thinking that might help some of the parents who are needing that extra time, or those students to still have some social skills and some interactions 4 days a week versus the 2 days a week, and maybe accommodating some families who can work in the mornings or work in the afternoons and plan to be home in, you know, the other parts of the day, is just what I'm thinking. Another thing, is there any way that students can, like, I still can't conceptualize why, if a student is in the classroom and someone is remote, why are they not able to be on Zoom or viewing the class as the teacher is teaching, so that they're participating from their computer screen? So can you explain that to me? Because I don't know why. I don't know if it's a technical issue.
No, more has to do with the kind of the model we've chosen. I'm going to lean on my two curriculum director gals here, Stacy and Stacy, to give a little input on that, because that was a definite decision we made going into this. So we wanted to do a different model from that, but they can verbalize that probably better than I can.
One of the things that we have to think about is the quality of interaction that they can do by watching it online. You can remember all the board meetings that we've done and how many people can't hear everything that we're saying on the YouTube channel. The same kind of thing would happen in the classroom, because it wouldn't be a Zoom face-to-face where every kid is sitting in front of a monitor and the teacher's sitting in front of the monitor. The teacher would be quite far away from the streaming. So it's not impossible, but it is problematic compared to what we were doing in the spring, where everybody was sitting on a Zoom. All your board meetings went much smoother while you were all in a Zoom meeting. But as soon as we started streaming it live, we just don't have the capability of doing that for every single classroom at the moment. That's one of the reasons that is a little bit problematic. The other one is some concerns for privacy. One of the reasons that Zoom is problematic is for privacy of the names of those kids. When any parent can get behind that kid and watch what is going on in the classroom. We already have parents that are upset and kids are upset about what is being shown. We just, out of respect for our teachers and out of respect of our students, we want them to feel safe. That is a big thing about quantum learning, is feeling safe for their education. And some kids can't feel that if they know a big audience is watching them in the classroom. And so that is some of the reasons why we chose not to stream it live, just out of respect for our staff and our students, so that they feel safe in their learning and willing to take risk. It's hard to do that when you've got unknown eyes watching you doing that. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I agree with both those points. The only other thing that I would add is the research is showing that most of our videos should be between 2 and 3 to 5 minutes in length, because that's the amount of time kids will attend and be engaged. And so if you're streaming all day long, the amount of engagement may or may not be there for those kids at home as well.
Okay.
I will add that we have current data for our high school students that are doing some Edgenuity coursework. They might be logged in for 6 hours for the day, but there's another metric that's monitored, and that's if the screen is idle for a long time. And you would be shocked how many of the times where in a week, kids might spend 15 hours of that logged in, but really they're only actually interacting with their learning for about 5 hours. And so when you're watching just a Zoom, it's real easy just to sit there and turn it on, and really not a lot of learning is interacting. And so when you're looking at that particular model, you just can't guarantee kids are going to be engaged. And so that's why we lean to a different model, to keep kids actually having to interact somehow in their learning. You can't do that with a Zoom when the teachers are monitoring 20 other kids in the classroom and 5 kids are watching online, and stopping and making sure you can answer all their questions and get the questions answered in the classroom. It's a lot of work. It's not impossible, but it's not ideal.
While you two are up here, can you guys tell us a little more about the Modern Classroom project and what the expectations are of students? Because I know a recurring theme that I'm hearing is that, the workload is too much, but it's also work at your own pace, and there are due dates still, so there's confusion about, is this work at your own pace, or is, what, all of that. So can you explain that a little better?
Sure. Modern Classroom Project is kind of the flipped classroom model, and it's also based on mastery learning. So if you remember back in July, we were waiting for the state to release their navigating change document, and that document separated standards into grade bands. Can you hear me okay? Sorry. Oh, sorry. You want me to? Test. Okay, so back in navigating change, the standards are separated into grade bands, so that you're thinking about mastery over a period of time versus assignments and projects. So the modern classroom project really mirrored what we were hearing from the state in navigating change. Gives students more opportunity for choice and develops student agency, more voice, more control over their learning, which essentially is theoretically going to give them more engagement and more control over their own learning, and more, I guess that's what I'm saying, more engagement. So there are demands that we are asking teachers to make sure that all kids are getting grade level work with support, but we want to make sure nobody falls behind. So all of our students are receiving or having the opportunity for grade level work, so we must make that clear. We're not going to remediate kids who don't need remediation. So then the other point of the modern classroom is to keep the standards high, the collaboration between students very high, and then at your own pace, kids can begin to plan their own learning. So in order to stay on track for 7th grade learning, for example, I need to be here at the end of this week, I need to be here at the end of this week, I need to be here at the end of this week. Well, if the learning takes me a little longer, that's okay. For this week, maybe I can, maybe it takes me a little more work this week, but next week's topic is going to be a little easier for me personally, so it's not going to take me as long. Or maybe I have a larger load in this class this week, but I have a smaller load here in this class for this week, so I can manage my time and begin to learn how to manage my own learning versus just doing what the teacher's telling me to do on a list of topics. Does that make sense? So that's the reason for the load. We want kids to be challenged. We want every student to be challenged, not to be having nervous breakdowns, but we do want them to be challenged.
And I will add that The whole purpose of recording the lessons every single day, or for each topic anyway, is so that kids can go back and revisit it. I know my own son goes back and rewatches the videos multiple times. So does my daughter. That's why the content is there. In theory, what should be happening, and what is happening in a lot of classrooms so far already, just with 3 weeks of practice, is that kids are able to go learn the basic information watching the video, and then they're supposed to be practicing and interacting and maybe working collaboratively with their peers while they're in the building on those 2 days. And then that can cycle. So the teacher doesn't have to spend time getting the notes down. The kids could do that while they're watching the videos. So I know it seems a little redundant, but it was very purposeful in why we picked that, so we can maximize the time students were in classrooms. And that we were able to set up a scenario where kids could go back and redo things. They're very quick at going to look at YouTube to find out how to beat this thing in Fortnite, but they're not very good at going back and finding out how to redo things in trinomials. I don't understand why not, but that's just how it is. So if we record those little video snippets, that's just one more resource that they can go back and rewatch over and over again if needed. I know it's not ideal, but it is something that allows them to do the basic stuff on their own, at their own pace, and then be ready to be engaged when they are in the classroom. That takes a lot of ownership for kids, though, too. They have to ask and they have to pre-plan. I know that some kids wait and do the hardest subject at the very end of the week, and then they don't have time to ask questions from their teacher while they were in class for 2 days. And they do have to email their teachers, and teachers are busting their butts to email within 24 hours because we've set that expectation for them. But some of that is project management on kids' parts, and that's a job skill that we're trying to prepare our kids for as well. So there's a lot of benefits to this model. We're just in the 3rd week of it, and it is new for everybody. Not just our kids, but our staff and our administration, and we just have to keep tweaking it a little bit. It's not perfect yet, but it's not bad.
Can you explain how that then translates to Power School or grading on Canvas? Because I know that's a common theme that I'm seeing is, Power School says it's late or it's missing or all of that, and that's causing added stress and conflict between parents and students.
I was just going to talk to you about grading, because now it does change the grading scheme, because now kids are getting graded on, theoretically, getting graded on their performance versus their behavior. So it's not about turning in X amount of assignments. It's more about what did you learn. So that's where we're moving toward. I think teachers are also caught right now between the traditional and the mastery grading. And so we're still trying to find our way, because we do understand parents need kind of a guide of what's been done, what should be done, and what should be graded. But then we're also trying to move toward that. So I think we're seeing some growing pains with Power School and what's due. But just what I tell teachers, continue to communicate with your parents, continue to make sure parents and kids know what's expected, and then same with parents, communicate with your teacher when you have questions. Good question.
So going to the modern classroom method, and you talk about privacy. How does privacy play into effect in that when students can see and know where another student's progress is? And how is that beneficial to everyone in that classroom, or, in that classroom, or what privacy is being violated, if any?
Sure. And by the way, if you want to learn more about Modern Classroom Project, it's modernclassroomproject.org. Is that right? But it's on there's a huge, beautiful website, and it's very, very well done. And we work with the founders, and they're a nonprofit, so they're open to questions. So, one of the pieces of any project management in any group, whether it's this group, you just had a project presented to you earlier today with due dates and things like that by Sue. Almost any group that has a project has due dates and different things that you have to get finished. That project tracker is just simply that. It was never meant to be showing kids as progress or grades. It was meant to say, okay, if I'm not done with this piece, I can look on that project tracker and see who is done and who I might go to get a little bit of help. And this would be in the classroom, or call them up on a Teams meeting or whatever and get some details about how I might collaborate with that person over that. We completely respect the parents and kids who were offended by that, and Mr. Urick took that down immediately, and you know, we're not quite there yet. But I do have to tell you that there are some groups of kids who were starting to collaborate and make their own little cohort groups and work together to get those things done. So that project tracker is part of it, but it doesn't have to be for us. That's not the main issue. The main thing is kids gaining control over their learning.
And I will say at the superintendent council, the middle school representative did say that this was going very well and that the teachers were loving it and they could see what was happening in a very short time with those students. And so they were very excited about where this could continue to go. So I'm just asking, playing devil's advocate here, just asking. So, and it was great to hear that from a middle school teacher who was sharing the thoughts with all of us and what the teachers were feeling in the middle school environment.
The idea would be they'd start, like Mrs. Bell said, they learn those procedural things at home, and then when they're with FaceTime with the teacher, that FaceTime is precious. So we're not talking, the teacher is teaching the whole time with a small group or one-on-one, like really teaching versus lecturing. So you just get rid of the lecture completely, which is a necessary thing, but it can be managed a different way.
You're talking about the Modern Classrooms project? Yes. modernclassrooms.org is the website.
Are you guys sitting in or auditing any of these, I guess, classes or instructions to just, I guess, verify that things are going the way you think they're going, or?
We've had some growing pains for sure, and yes, we have been in and out of a few different ones. You know, it just depends on the day, depends on the age. I will say that you'll see more modern classroom type structure in the upper grades, and elementary is really more, there's some, but it's just a little more of a different thing. It's not always great, I will tell you that, but in classrooms every lesson is not always great, and we just continue to try and do this. I talked with a third grade group as we were getting all this started, and the stress comes from having to relearn everything. I think they're feeling, you know, the things that they could do automatically, like go to lunch, that's not a thing anymore. Mm-hmm. Or go to recess, or the bathroom breaks, all those things that you would normally do, the carpet time, storybook reading at the elementary level, we don't do that anymore as the way we used to. So everything is different, and teachers are getting it. But they've had to relearn their jobs very quickly, and they're doing it. But that's what part of the stress is. But yes, it's not always beautiful. But sometimes it really is beautiful.
And I will also say that we just had our first Wednesday Thursday where teachers are able to collaborate and do another reset of planning, because the first 2 weeks, you remember, we were only in 4 days. So a lot of them are just now catching their breath, and they're now starting to work with some of their instructional coaches to reflect on what's gone well, what they might need to improve upon, and where they're headed next. And same way with the administration. They're sending out emails to the staff, and they're looking at data about grades and interaction with students, and now they're saying, okay, we've had 2 or 3 solid weeks now. Here are some great positive things that have happened, and here are some things that we probably need to work on next in refining. So we are auditing that from a wide perspective.
Stacy, one of the complaints I think I've received was at the middle school level that they have 5 or 6 different logins to different systems that they have to get into. Is that, I guess, accurate? And is that something that can be simplified?
Well, so Canvas at the middle school and the high school, if you think about that, that is like a filing cabinet. There is one key for that filing cabinet. Okay? There's a different drawer for each subject, right? So you do have to open different drawers, but it's still a filing cabinet. So each subject is a different drawer, and within that drawer you have different folders, right? So I'm trying to paint a picture here. There's learning that happens by a teacher pulling out activities out of that drawer. But they also make their own things, right? And they teach those things. So when you're doing all of that digitally, you are going to have different logins or different passwords for those things. I counted today, I had to use 7 passwords and 7 different logins to do my job today. It's just the reality of how things are going. And those kids had to use those passwords last year, they had to use them the year before. It's just you see it more because they're logging in at home versus at school.
Okay,
So
that's fair.
There are a lot of passwords, and we have worked really hard to streamline a lot of it. A lot of what Blair's put in with single sign-on, is that kind of right, Blair? And that enables them to have the same logon and password, but it doesn't alleviate the need to go to a different site. So, and Blair could explain a little more.
So at the elementary level, we did add some digital products that would require our platform, our Canvas, quote unquote, is Seesaw. So the lessons are within Seesaw, but our math curriculum is based on Zern, which is the same as Eureka Math, which is what we have adopted and have been using. It's just more digital. So Zern requires a password, and then Seesaw requires a password, and then iStation requires a password, but we've always had iStation, and that's our reading software. And then Freckle for 2 of the schools is a product that we use, but they've had that in the previous year, so that requires a password. So there are some things that do require passwords, and probably Epic and some different reading software. But the one all-encompassing software answer just doesn't exist. So you have to kind of use the best of everything.
There is no one application that does our math, that does our reading, that does our science, that does where somebody can just go boing, and they're absolutely set to run.
Correct.
So going to what Bridget had mentioned about the difficulties of an assignment getting lost or thinking it got turned in, or and losing the assignment altogether, is that something that's part of Canvas? And is that something that Blair can speak on?
She mentioned Zern and Seesaw, and I only heard that once, and that was on Friday. So I'm still in the middle of investigating that.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what happened in that case.
So, when students are at home, they are, like when I was living in Dover, Kansas temporarily, anytime the internet blinked and my son or my daughter happened to hit submit just at that same time, they thought they submitted the work and it didn't go. But we have that problem, you know, here in Barrington, Kansas too, or we have it in several other places in the structure. So that's the nature of the internet, and the internet is a little bit less reliable here. So it does take training kids to double check. But I tell you that that's a life skill that I teach my own children, that if the big report is due, I'm going to make sure that the boss got it. I'm going to make sure that the boss got my phone call by double checking. And not that that is how we want to do things all the time. We want it to be slick and perfect. It's just not sometimes. And so we have to teach our students, just like we have to teach ourselves, how to make sure to double check their stuff got in. And that is a great life skill that we wouldn't have thought to teach kids. And we wish that we didn't have to. But unfortunately, the internet is not 100% stable all the time in every home.
I'm more close to the fact that it was the multiple screens that he would enter into, say, biology, and then there'd be a swipe over for a screen and some reading material, swipe over. And as I was trying to follow him and what he was trying to explain to me, it became very confusing because of the multiple layers of screens he had to go to configure all this. Like in a business, if somebody had multiple screens, everybody loves the multiple screens in a business. These kids don't get that opportunity because they're on iPads. So the multiple screen sliding is more of what I was speaking to. When he has dealt with Canvas before, I believe he said it might have been an app. And at that point, I was of the understanding from one of the previous board meetings that the app is no longer available because they have changed their platform. And he mentioned that it was much easier to navigate at that point versus now. So that was more to what I was speaking to, is the flexibility for the kids and what they were used to is different. That as a parent, it's very hard to help when multiple screens are being gone through. And the ease of that could also be just helpful.
I would agree.
If we-
Unfortunately, we don't have much control about how the websites are designed, which sucks. But that's also a reality of life. When we're dealing with designed resources, it's their design, not ours.
And that's something too that we can address with instructional coaches and teachers, is they're designing their lessons to try to minimize the navigation and swiping of lessons, and that's definitely something that we can work on. But the actual logins, I think people are kind of struggling with the concept of the different things. There's just not one product that does everything all school, or we wouldn't have school, right? It would just be go to an app and do that. So
I think that's the way it's supposed to be heading anyway.
Just clarify on logins a little bit. So when a student enters our district, they are given a username and password that's entered into PowerSchool, so teachers can see those credentials easily if they need it for a class. They can export those. Those work for when we were PCs. They would work on the PCs. They also work on the Macs. They use those to get an iPad or a MacBook, depending on what grade level you are. Those also are basically the same credentials for Google, basically the same credentials for Office 365. The part after the @ sign changes, but it's the same username, same password. Same for Canvas. They're actually using their Google account to log into that. So we try to streamline that. We don't have a true single sign-on solution in place, but we try to integrate with existing systems to make sure that there is pretty much one username and one password that's used in quite a few places.
Is that something
Keep
we
that
do
in mind. I know that
broadcast?
one of the emails that was read tonight mentioned passwords. A lot of those are, we have to meet certain restrictions or requirements from Google. So Google, if the kid logs in and it doesn't have an uppercase, lowercase, and a letter, it's prompting them that their password does not meet the requirements and to change it. So we've had to make those even more complex than we would like to meet some of those systems that no longer says, hey, you should change it, but now it's saying you are required to change it. So I get it. Sitting in a kindergarten, first grade class, trying to enter all that when we had computer labs and all the buildings was tough, and I do get that. We can't change the Google and the Microsofts of the world. So try to streamline that as much as possible, and I hope that help
good.
answer some
Yeah.
of those questions or not.
Just go to Google and tell them, do you know who I am?
There's been a running joke in computer science for many, many years that strong passwords aren't meant so much for security, it's meant to confuse the bejesus out of somebody who wants to steal our passwords. And that's wonderful if you're an adult and you can juggle 7 or 8 passwords, 8 to 16 characters with case change numbers and special characters. Try and teach a 5-year-old how to just remember one password is fun. So, yeah.
So-
Unfortunately, we can't get away from that.
Stacy and Stacy, so if we were to switch to in-person classroom, how much planning ahead of time would be required? How much planning ahead are they doing now? Are they like 1 week ahead, 2 weeks ahead? Are they a month ahead? And then if they were to pivot, like what would be required to go 5 days?
Generally, probably most teachers are a week planned out for the week, and then probably detail planned for a day or two.
Okay.
I would guess.
But if we were to bring them all back, they would have to adjust their classrooms. And I mean, I know they've already made adjustments to, especially in the elementary level, with reading areas and stuff where the same kid can't handle the same book. So we'll have less supply of books in the classrooms and things like that. Is that correct?
Right. And we bring furniture back in, and it would be more crowded.
I guess the big question would be, if we made the decision to go 5 days a week, how long would it, a ballpark estimate, how long would it take to go from the hybrid learning model we're in right now to full-time school 5 days a week?
Well, it's going to take a little time, number one, to figure out transportation. It seems like it should be a straightforward, simple thing, but that's like setting a new master schedule for busing. So Jafon has to actually redo, based on who's going to ride, who's not going to ride, redo all those routes. And that alone probably takes a period of time. I'm suggesting, Nathan may be able to give me a better, but at least a couple weeks, 2 weeks, to try to get that accomplished. Can it happen quicker? Sure, but there'll be a lot of issues trying to figure out how to transport people because it won't be correct. So she's just now finishing up the routes from the start of the year. We had to say, stop, let's do them. And then she's been adding and changing and doing it since we started school. And I think right now, she caught up at least for where we are, right, Nathan? Yeah. So that's a big thing we always have to consider. I mean, we bus a lot of kids, and if we're going to say parents are going to drive so many, we're going to not drive, we're going to transport so many, that changes the whole scheme of things. Because some kids riding may now be transported by families, some that Others may need to be on the bus every day of the week, and we got to figure out how to do all that. So, physically doing it, I mean, it's going to be moving stuff back to classrooms.
Master schedule has to change a little bit at all the buildings.
Potentially looking at how we put kids where and when. So there's a shift that has to take place.
So we already know it's not going to be overnight. It sounds like it could take upwards of a month or so.
No. What I would ask for is at least 2 weeks if you make a change, just to give us some time to try to get there.
Yeah, that's fair. Dr. O'Brien, how are the students with the IEPs doing? The special ed students, and how's that group of students doing? I guess I'm concerned a little bit that they're not getting the.
Well, I think it's going to depend. Every student is different. It's going to depend on the individual students and how much service they get, as well as the opportunities that they take advantage of. There are some opportunities that aren't necessarily written into the IEPs that are made available to students to get extra assistance, and so we're trying to put more of those in for all of our students, but particularly for our special education students. So it's hard for me to give you a gauge on that because it's going to be different with each student.
Okay. What is it? Let me ask another question around the students with IEPs. I don't know if you can hear me with this. Is it feasible or to put the kids with IEPs in 4 days a week? Put them in with the other group. For Monday, Tuesday, go Thursday, Friday. Would that be more beneficial to them to have that lesson reinforced and then maybe work with a para or whoever during that other 2 days?
Well, obviously, the more they're at school, the better. The problem is we have 600 and, as of this morning, 664 special education students.
Oh, wow.
So some of that is just the logistics and the safety of putting those students all back in a building. Then when we talk about having paras that would reinforce with our kiddos, which we're trying to do some of that even on Wednesdays. I mean, we're trying to incorporate all of that in there. But those paras and teachers still have a group of kids and a classroom that they are working with the other side of the hybrid. So we might have fewer kids in those classes, but they still have to try to cover those students in the classes on the days that they're here. So logistics becomes a real issue and safety becomes a real issue. I guess those are my two big pieces. The way our hybrid is working with the 2 days on, 3 days off for our kids, it does present a problem with the same content being taught Monday, Tuesday as it is Thursday, Friday, but to two different groups of kids. And then having your staff still responsible for the kids that are there that particular day and the content that's being taught that day, not just in their classroom, but in those general education classrooms as well to make modifications and accommodations. So
how's that model going to change though when you have 5 days a week and all those kids will be there in the school at the same time anyway?
With all of our kids in?
Right.
Well, they're going to be having a different content every day, like we do in a traditional school year. Right now, the content that's taught Monday and Tuesday to one group of kids is the same content that's taught Thursday and Friday to that second group of kids.
So those kids need this that have the IEPs need to support those other days, is what I'm hearing.
I'm sorry.
So those kids that have the IEPs need this support those other days that they. If you had them all there, you just don't have enough staff to support them.
That would be part of it. Yes, to make it meaningful.
Okay.
To give them that extra assistance that they need, and that we think logistically should be possible. When you look at it in detail, it it's not set up that way. Because we might have fewer students, but we still have students in those classes to cover. So we can't take one from here and have them work with one set of kids that was here Monday and Tuesday, but this is Thursday and Friday, because then our Thursday and Friday kids aren't getting service. I don't know if that makes sense. It's the logistics. So that's where we're at. We certainly want, everybody wants kids back in school as soon as we can get them there safely. And we're trying to put in some extra supports.
Sure. How much time would you guys need in the special education department to pivot and come to 5 days a week?
Sure. If we're talking about, a pre-K through 6, 2 weeks, I think is, in my mind, when we were talking, I'm thinking 2 weeks. When we start dividing those grade levels, so pre-K 2 and then adding them later, we start having to juggle caseloads from special ed's perspective. So because I have teachers that cover multiple grade levels, and so that adds a new dimension in there, but I still think that we can repurpose some things, reorganize within 2 weeks. It just makes it a little more difficult on them to figure out who's going to cover what students. And these were my students yesterday, but now we're going to have to shift, and we can do that. And I think in 2 weeks we can do that. So, yeah.
Did the iPads that you were waiting on come in?
They are here.
Okay.
And in several buildings, they have been set up and distributed, and in 2 of our elementaries, and the other 2 are in the process of doing that. And then what I failed to mention the last time is that our middle school and high school paras already had devices. So they have had them. They used them last year for the most part. All of them have, and especially at our high school level. I was so worried about our elementaries that I was focused on that when I said that they didn't have devices. So our secondary already had them. Our elementary devices are here, and they've worked really hard at getting them out, and I've had a couple emails that they're very thankful to have them. So we're excited that they're here. I think that will be helpful in reaching kids and meeting some of their needs when they're on their off days or our full remote kids. So.
So sorry. When we talk about 2 weeks, we're talking about continuing to teach school, not taking any days off to prepare. I just want you to realize that. So we really only have like Wednesday afternoon to plan for the change. So 2 weeks is very ambitious.
Can I ask you another question going back to the modern, sorry, I want to make sure I get the words right, the modern classroom method? With that, if students are working at their pace, how does that work with, technically, is there anything that's ever really late? If they're working at their own pace, are teachers being flexible with an assignment coming in 2 weeks later? How does that work?
To every teacher, but yeah, that there are specific due dates.
Okay.
But mastery grading or standards-based grading is very you have to have a cutoff at some point. So that's why there's the due date. And I don't know about the specifics of every teacher's grading policy, so
Okay.
bear with me on that. But there's some grace and some flexibility there. I will also say that not only did we study Modern Classroom Project, but K through 12, we also had people doing the distance learning from Doug Fry and John Hattie and Nancy, Doug Fisher and Nancy Fry. So we did that. That's their John Hattie's homies there. And then we also had a group doing learning from Avid and their distance learning piece as well. So we kind of put all those pieces together, and we take the best from everything, and all of the models are kind of meshing together, and I think that's what you see.
So if we were to change back
we would continue moving forward with using the implementation of the Modern Classroom projects. This, it wouldn't be we're abandoning everything we've done so far. We would just be bringing more kids back for more periods or for full time. So we would still have some of the growing pains we're experiencing right now, and our teachers would still be learning how to use the Modern Classroom project, but only on a larger, with more students in their classroom. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate. There are a lot of teachers that have found a lot of value in that process, but you also have to think about consistency over time. If we bring everyone back in 2 weeks and then 2 weeks later we have to go full remote, we wouldn't want to stop what we're doing, go back and do something different, and then oops, stop again. Now we're back to remote, so we have to go this way. So the plan was to be able to sustain a model throughout the whole school year so that we could move as easily as possible into the different models as the board saw fit.
The other thing to remember at the middle school level especially, every single teacher in there also will have remote kids, full remote. There'll still be, no matter what we do, a clientele of kids that is full remote. So for them, it could actually be more difficult to bring more kids back in, and a lot of them are expressing that to us, that if I teach normal now during the day, well, that doesn't work for the full remote kids. And so how do I deal with those two groups at that time? So I could see that a lot of them maybe even continuing on with what they're doing now because that they have to get both groups somehow.
So with the students that are full on remote and knowing that the middle school students have a teacher assigned, the high school students, do they also have a schedule if they are full remote? So they would be in Mrs. Jones's Spanish class and Mrs. K's math class, or are they strictly reporting to their advisor, or how does that work? Like, are they assigned a classroom for those remote students that are full remote?
So for our remote students at the high school, it's very different based on the needs that they had. For example, we had a student that needed symphonic orchestra. I can't do that without being here. So we have a few remote students that come for one class a day, or one class a week, or 2 classes a week, and the rest is remote because those options just weren't available somewhere else. We have some students that are doing some of their work in Edgenuity, and they are still being graded like any of the AP class work that they're doing through Edgenuity. Our teachers are doing all the grading for that. Our teachers aligned all those Edgenuity classes to mirror the content that's going on in the regular classrooms. So those teachers aren't doing as much as the middle school teachers as far as the remote, but they're having to grade a lot more and a little bit more intense because of the nature of the coursework, the AP piece to that. Each student that is remote is assigned to meet with a counselor and a principal for their daily check-ins at all possible. And then they have some teachers that they are connected with, and at any time they have 24-hour access to a math teacher or to a language arts teacher. Whatever is needed, we get that there. So if you think of the administration and the counselors, they're there to check in on kids, check on their well-being, their safety, how's it going. They're monitoring their progress very diligently through Edgenuity. We have some additional analytics that are in that allows them to monitor their progress, and then they seek out and get help. So on Wednesdays, a lot of our teachers are offering office hours for our remote learning students, or students are having the opportunity to come in and work with teachers or do some sort of Zoom call. So every one of them is just a little bit different. We have Washburn Tech kids that are remote but still are doing Washburn Tech. So there's not a one-size-fits-all. I can't say every kid is assigned to this at the high school because the needs are so different. And when you get to that level, licensure is a problem. You have to be working with a teacher that is licensed in that content area. The elementary, You can teach any of the subjects in elementary. I have a K-9 certification. I can teach every elementary. I can teach most of the subjects in the middle school. But once you get into the upper secondary grades, I can only teach biology, or I can only teach Spanish. So that really is problematic for our students. And so in order to, or problematic for our staff. So in order to help with that licensure, we're also incorporating the counselors and the principals. But we have very caring counselors and principals that are reaching out to teachers and getting help for students that they need. It's not a matter of just turning them loose to somebody else. That's not what they're doing.
So bringing those remote high school students back is going to be quite a bit more of an adjustment, and take some more time to get them assigned to the right teachers and the right classes.
Right. We had to totally redo the high school master schedule to do hybrid. So that will take a little bit more work than probably any of the others as far as the master schedule because of what we're doing. We also have the problem of, it was cool because I might not be able to do this AP course because it wasn't offered, but I could pick up this AP course. Now, if those kids all decide to come back 5 days a week, we don't offer that course at Shawnee Heights. So they're still going to have to do some of that. We're just going to have to do a little bit of give and take. It's doable, but it is going to take some time.
I know that we've talked a lot about emotional and mental health. What has been put out there for students and parents for resources? And I know we've discussed this before, but I think it's a good reminder as much as possible. Where can they find those resources? On our website, Tiffany? Or do they reach out to one of the counselors?
Yeah, there is definitely capability to reach out to our counselors. Our teachers can also reach out to those counselors and get that going. And I think, is it on the district website too? There's also resources, a toolkit resource that our mental health team put together for parents and families to look at and reach out if they need help, not only for social emotional, but for funding, for food, just extra support that our community offers here in Topeka. So those resources are there. They're also at the elementary, they're still teaching library or counseling lessons with students. Our middle school staff still is going to teach their bullying unit and some of those things, so we're still providing those resources. And then we also will still have our social emotional learning lessons and things up at the high school.
Thank you. Does anybody have objections? You may make a comment.
My name is Cody Davis. And this is my first time actually coming to a school board meeting, so I apologize for not really knowing quite how to go about making a comment and all that, so please forgive me. I am just starting to teach a first grader, which is kind of new to me with the whole hybrid learning and all that. Trying to think of different growing pains that I go through and listen to the growing pains that other people have had, understanding that your guys' role and responsibility are towards the students and through the teachers. So how to support and get the students what they need while not feeling like you're abandoning what the teachers need, also to feel comfortable where they work at. The only thing that really comes to my mind is exploring the options of the local higher education systems around here, such as KU and Washburn, Emporia, and the exploration of how we pair those students up with the teachers that currently who may have educational aspirations, and building relationships with those higher education type places in order to offer support. Me personally, am very lucky with the job that I have, allowing me to be off Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to work with my student with the hybrid learning program that we have. I know that I'm not as, or other people are not as lucky as me with scheduling purposes like that. But, just to have someone who maybe understands technology a little bit better and has a desire to educate that is available on those days, just even remotely, and is on the same page as a teacher, or something as worthy to them as experience in the teaching field. So that's kind of the only thing that's been going through my head. I don't know if that's ever been explored, but I definitely thought it would be something worth putting out in front of you guys. There's probably some young minds out there, 22 and 23-year-olds, want to be teachers, have better ideas of how this technology works than even myself does. You don't even necessarily have to be looking at education. Maybe if they just know how to teach science a little bit better than a warehouse worker does. So, but yeah, I appreciate you guys letting me interrupt for just a second.
Thank you.
Heck, I know a couple of 50-year-olds who might be interested in helping with stuff like that.
So back to the hours, if we can talk about that for just a minute. So the 6.5 hours, that was set by the state board, or the State Department of Education, right? Because that was outlined in the Navigating Change document, right?
That is correct.
And we as a district are legally obligated, there's a state law, right, that requires us to meet so many minutes a year, is that right?
We have to do 1,116 hours.
Okay.
You guys all signed off on that at the start of the year. So basically what, if you looked at 6.5 hours a day over a year's time would be about that. That's kind of where that number's coming from.
So then when you factor in the Modern Classrooms project, which you've raised the bar a little bit, so there might be a little more workload there than what traditionally speaking we have. Whether we're doing hybrid or 5 days a week, that bar is not going to change, so the workload essentially is going to stay the same. Is that correct? So then, because a lot of what I'm seeing and hearing from, and we heard in our emails and stuff, is that the workload is a lot and that they feel overburdened by all this workload. But my concern is that this is the standard, this is the workload that we're going to have, and whether we're in school, we'll be in school for 6.5 hours, and then they still may have work to do outside of their normal school hours, and that's going to happen whether we are in hybrid or 5 days a week full time. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, if you think about 6.5 hours a day, there is a little bit of downtime. Elementary kids get to go to recess. We have passing periods. They take breaks, but they are learning for most of their day. And there are students that have no homework at the end of 6.5 hours. Never do they take homework home. They just are very motivated. Education comes easy to them and they're done. And you have other students that could spend all night, every single night, and the weekend, and they still can't get it done. And that's been eons that's the case. And we are seeing the exact same thing in hybrid. We'll see the exact same, we saw the exact same thing in the spring for our secondary kids that were expected to do about 3 hours. There is homework and studying and things like that. I think it is a little bit more transparent because it's in a list and they see all the activities versus when they're doing them in the classroom, they don't see the teacher's list in their brain that, oh, in 10 minutes we're going to switch to this next activity and then 10 minutes later we're switching to the next activity. The kids just see it as one class. And now they see each of those activities and it seems very overwhelming to them. And so there's some growing pains with understanding that. But the expectation that kids should just be done at, we've never expected kids to just walk out the door and never study or never read a book at home or never practice their violin. We've never had that expectation. So same would still be true.
Okay. Yeah, so my fear is that, although we all really want our kids back in school full time, I think that's been very clearly established, but we want to do it in a safe manner. But my fear is that a lot of the parents who are really pushing for this don't realize that by putting them back in school 5 days a week, we're still going to have the same Modern Classroom project. We're still going to be dealing with all of these growing pains. We're not going back to where we were in February, where, we bring everybody back lunch is still going to be different. Recess is still going to be different. Library time is still going to be different. All of that stuff is still going to be different, whether we have everybody back 5 days a week or we continue in hybrid. Am I right with that?
Yeah, I think you are right. And part of the reason it looks and feels like more is traditionally or on the Monday, Tuesday, or the Thursday, Friday, when you're in class, you have, your teacher may talk to you, then you have, from an elementary perspective, teacher talks to you for a little bit, teaches you a lesson. Then you do some math practice. Then you do some sprints for your math basic facts. Then you read a book. Then you do this. Then you have a read aloud. Well, when you're at home in hybrid, those are all recorded. So it looks like, watch this video, do this tower alert, do this sprint on Zern, read this book, listen to this read aloud. I mean, there are activities that are laid out. So it looks intimidating, but that's just what teachers do. It's not necessarily written down in a list. Does that make sense?
I wonder if a lot of this is just, something I learned as a parent many, many years ago. You don't know what's going on in that classroom. You don't, when your child goes to school, you put your innate trust in the teacher that they're going to go through a dedicated lesson plan every day. And you trust them that that lesson plan is going to work. You don't know that 9 o'clock to 9:15 we're doing this, 9:15 to 9:30 we're doing this. All of a sudden, it's laid out bare for everybody. This is what we're accomplishing in this classroom today. And the first time I saw it, this was many, many years ago, I was like, holy Moses, how does one person get 20 kids through this program in one day, day after day after day after day after day? That's part of what I'm getting off of this is, oh my God, you're expecting my child to do so much. They've been doing it for years. It's just, it's finally coming out what these kids are doing every day in their classrooms.
And the cool part is that what we would like is if you're struggling, you would get some extra help. That's what we would like. But if you're not struggling, you don't have to sit there and listen to the other kids' questions, and if you get it right away, you can move on. So it's hopefully a way to really differentiate and build everyone's strengths so that everyone's getting stronger, not just holding some kids back or expecting too much from others. Does that make sense?
Sorry. I am always trying to look at the glass half full versus half empty. And you guys have talked about some great things and have, told us and shared videos with us about how students are succeeding because the classrooms are smaller and that there are some great benefits to what we are doing. And I think that those are so important to share with everyone that, yes, there are some struggles, but there are also some wonderful things that are happening in the classroom and doing the modern method. Did I say that right? And having our children be accountable because they're going to have to be accountable when they get into the work field and, or in the service or where, in college, whatever it is. And I keep going back and I keep looking at our goals. And when I'm looking at it, to adapt innovative and rigorous instructional strategies, and I feel like we're doing that, and our teachers are doing an excellent job trying to maintain that goal, and you guys are doing a great job helping them navigate through that. And, when I see our number 3 is to adhere to appropriate health and safety guidelines, to promote and maximize the safety, security, and well-being of attendees. I feel like that's what we've been doing by going off of, what the county has provided us and where we are and what, Mr. Hirsch has provided us. The only thing that I see is to proactively address the social emotional needs of students and staff. And that's the one piece where I want us to get better. And, it breaks my heart to think that there are students crying and feeling like they're not getting all of their work done and feeling like they're not accomplishing what we're asking of them. And I don't know if that's just communicating with parents more and letting them know, hey, we are here for you. How can we help you? What do we need to do? I mean, the parents that have done the cohort and the pods and stuff, they've figured out something that works. So what is it that we're lacking in that one area? Or is that with our little ones, the pre-K and the kindergartners, adjusting and bringing them back sooner so that they can get that social emotional piece? And I don't know the answer to that. I have our goals pulled up, and those are the areas that I feel like we've done a great job, except for the one social emotional piece. And that's why I asked, where can the, parents get help or hotlines and what is it that we're not doing to meet that need? Because I think our goals are really important, and that's why we established them. But I think that our district is doing a really good job, even if that means not going with what the rest of the flow is doing. Just how do we fix the one piece that we need to fix? And whether that's, hey, let's bring pre-K kindergarten back in 2 weeks, or let's empower our parents to have more information.
Last week, we started doing the social emotional survey. Is that what you're going to talk about?
That's what I was
Okay.
going to say.
Go ahead.
Yeah, our mental health group did a social emotional assessment at each building. And so they had a number of questions on the survey to tease out different things. So they're taking that data now and looking at it, analyzing it, and trying to decide if there's specific groups they need to reach out, of course, specific students. What things are we missing that we need to put more services into place or more information out there? So we are in the process of analyzing that information, but that has been done. I think it was completed, was it midweek last week?
I think so, yeah.
Midweek last week, so they'd had about 2 weeks in, and that information is being compiled. But there's information on the website, there's information at each of the buildings that they have put on their individual websites or sent home, and the counselors and the social workers are keeping tabs on, specific sets of students or students that they've worked with in the past and families. So we're making strides there. I think when we get this data analyzed, we'll be able to do some other things, some more focused things with our community. But that's where we're at right now. So it's been finished as of midweek last week. So we'll see what we can get from there. Also, Family Service and Guidance puts out a lot of information and programming, and so we try to make sure we get that out there anytime we know about it and try to provide that to parents. So we're trying to get that information to them for assistance.
Are you guys looking out for flags for depression and signs of, maybe suicide and that type of thing?
Yes, and one of the things I know that they've worked really hard at is making sure that their teachers are looking for those things, maybe being more conscientious because they don't see the students every day. And so making sure they're making a concerted effort when they are with their kiddos to make to observe things, to make sure they're having discussions with kids, so that they can get a feel on where the students are. But yes, and they're really working hard with the teachers on that. So they're the ones that see the kids. So they've got that information out there, but we're trying to keep a good handle on that.
At all ages too, not just elementary. I know you mentioned that they do counseling sessions or times at the elementary level, but the junior highs and the high school kids? How is that being flagged?
Especially at the high school level, that group has done a good job of working with their teachers in identifying students, but they also have done the mental health assessments with the kids, and they have groups that they do even remotely, and they'll do social lunch bunches and different types of things at both high school and middle school. And I think, have the counselors at the middle school started doing some things in classrooms? I think that was in the plan. So it's not just elementary. In fact, a lot of the things I was thinking about were secondary.
Do you have enough? I'm sorry. No. Do you have enough data yet to know whether or not there's been an increase in kind of depression and those types of anxieties that go along with that?
No, I don't have any. I don't have any quantitative data.
Okay.
And we'll have some information from this mental health assessment that we did, but also there's going to be some data that we could probably collect from buildings outside of that. So, but I don't have that with me. No, not yet.
And who's watching out with talking to our teachers as well on depression, stress, handling that anxiety?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, first of all, we're all watching out for each other.
Good.
And the principals are really keeping an eye on their teachers, and the teachers are keeping an eye on each other. So that's, that's ongoing. And there's a real conscious effort to communicate about what it is. There are always going to be tiers with a change like this, and there's going to be that learning pit. One piece of hard data that I do have at the elementary level, behavior problems are like 0. That's one of the gauges you use when kids struggling at school and they just don't have any behavior problems right now.
Lastly, I just wanted to speak on the social emotional piece. That is why the State Department required us to have a phone call or a face-to-face video call with every student every day. That was for that idea of checking on their emotional well-being, monitoring their mannerisms, making sure they don't have bruises on their faces, or it looks like they've self-harmed themselves or been in a harmful situation. That is why just emailing a teacher doesn't work, and people don't understand that. But the reason behind that absolutely was the social emotional well-being of our students and our teachers being able to monitor that.
So we are still on an action item. I will say, it's been 14 days. I know there's been a lot of growing pains and a lot of things that everybody's working out. I also understand the frustrations. I've had my own frustrations as a parent, working from home full time with 3 children ranging from 2 to 13. But I really think that we should stay the course with hybrid for now. Keep monitoring the numbers. Let Matt present to us what the data he got from our teacher survey, teacher and staff survey, and continue with the kind of process that Matt outlined for us in the email last week. So I would entertain a motion to approve staying in hybrid.
So moved.
Second.
I've got a motion by Jason and a second by Eric. All in favor, show of hands. 4 and opposed. 2. 4 to 2. Motion passes. We will remain in hybrid. We will move on to discussion items, elementary staff survey results.
So the next sheet in that packet I gave you kind of summarizes a little bit. We had to kind of come up with a draft of what it might look like, so when we surveyed our elementary teachers, they would have a feel for what they were telling me they're comfortable for. So that sheet kind of goes through what it might look like. Again, we're in the data collection phase of what it might look like. But the idea goes to the whole idea of cohort groups. If we bring more kids back into the building, there's only so much space in a building, and trying to keep your groups down to sizes that distancing gets really hard. And so the idea of that cohort group, each class being a cohort group, allows us to keep that group together, not interact them with any other group. And so if there are times an infection of a person in that group, then that group is quarantined as a group and not everybody else. So that's kind of the philosophy behind it. But basically, going through the bullets there, initially we would suggest the 7-12 stay in hybrid. Students in full remote learning will stay where they are. There may be some that want to switch back to the full classroom, and we would have to work with some of those options. Initially starting with the pre-K through 3, and looking at information from the state, information from the doctors that are in the county. If you had a group you wanted to start with, that would be the group to start with. The infection rates are lowest amongst feet or more. The county health department, just so you know, has backed off a little bit. I know initially we talked about 6 feet without a mask is the same as 3 feet with a mask. They backed off on that a little bit. They would like us to stay at that 6-foot social distance thing, I think mainly because the county infection rate is still pretty high. And so the best solution is still to keep the social distancing. But this would bring them down a little bit for those groups, closer to the 3-foot range. When any time a student goes for special services in different programs, those programs would have to maintain 6-foot social distancing. So if like they would go to a special ed service or go to speech services, things like that, they have to make sure and keep the social distancing. Anytime they're out of that cohort group, they need to do social distancing. All other safety measures stay the same. So anything else, the hand washing, the cleaning, the temperature checks, the mask wearing, all that is still the same for the plan. The plan is still our normal back-to-school plan. We just changed to cohort groups instead of social distancing in the classroom. Transportation was the last one. We talked about that. Obviously the need to have some family support us because with those cohort groups we can't maintain that. So with that said, we surveyed our elementary teachers. We just did the elementary group. And so let's look at that. We asked them what's their comfort level with students returning to full on-site 5-day a week at this time. Your first graph there looks at all elementary staff. This is all staff, everybody, teachers, custodians, paras, everybody, and their comfort level. The greens are those interested and very comfortable with coming back. So dark green would be very comfortable. Light green would be moderately comfortable. Light red, moderately uncomfortable. And dark red, not comfortable at all. So you can see as a whole elementary across the district, you're talking 65% approximately. That is not as comfortable about having this happen. If we jump to the next group we've got there, looking at people we considered licensed people, so teachers, special teachers, that's PE, music, things of that nature, and then other licensed professionals, which would be counselors, social workers, psychologists, etc., and look at that group alone. So we're taking out all the classified staff. Your number of uncomfortable goes up even more.
Yeah, 66.
66%. So if we look at instructional professionals outside of the teaching group, so paraprofessionals, teacher aides, lit tutors, that group, you can see they're very similar to the others. And then let's just look at the actual classroom teacher. So I'm looking at this next group is just those teachers that actually teach a grade level, whether it's special education or a regular grade level, but pre-K through 6. And you can see with that group, it's about 66% in that uncomfortable range with the 2 reds. So then it's back down. The first group we talked about possibly bringing back is that pre-K through grade 3 group. And even that group is a little better, but it's about 55% in the uncomfortable range. As you go into the, I'll leave that where it is, the 4 through 6 is the next chart down. That increases substantially with that group. They are really not very comfortable. We're talking 56,
84.4.
84.4. So yeah, up in the 80% range. That's a large number. So that group, and obviously the kids are getting a little older there, and then their comfort level goes down. It's harder to keep those distance too. So if I just look at grade levels, each one by classroom teacher, so the same people we were looking at in these groups up here, just looking at classroom teachers, but looking at it by grade level specifically. Pre-K is your most comfortable group. If I estimate down, it's about 30-35% uncomfortable. The rest are good with it. Kindergarten is not as comfortable. First grade is about a little over 50%. And so you can see as it goes down. Once you get over 3rd grade, then it is not as good. So basically what they're telling us as a group, and I believe I sent you all the comments on extra comments we had from the survey, so you can read through those. But kind of in a summary, what I'm reading from them, I'm even getting this from a lot of people that say they're comfortable, but they're really concerned about changing the social distancing. There's a feeling, and I would 100% agree, we've been successful where we are right now because we've followed some of the social distancing and masking rules along with all our cleaning strategies and stuff we've done. So, to have the few number of cases we've had, we have not even had a live case in the building this year. They've all still been cases that came from preschool starting. I think that's pretty incredible, and it's got to be due to the measures we've taken to try to mitigate that and making sure to quarantine people that we're concerned about before they become positive cases also. So there's a big concern amongst teachers as I read through those that if we go away from the social distancing, what's going to happen then? There's a concern amongst the group as I read through those. I know you've initially heard a lot of concern about the hybrid and the stress caused to teachers, but now 3 weeks in, they finally had a Wednesday to help through some of those planning things for the going forward. Now the stress becomes, okay, we're good. We've got a lot of training on it. We're starting to get used to it. We're moving that direction. To do a full switch back and to go back, that's a struggle for them. They right now I think they feel like, let's stick with our plan. It's good. Let's keep our social distancing. That's working right now. We're working through the stress of the hybrid and getting through that. So that's one thing I'm reading. There's a concern about the cleaning if you put more people in the buildings. If we're going to do enough cleaning to keep us healthy, the hand washings, the amount of time it takes to wash all those hands in the elementary especially, and then the issue of pre-K, some of the smaller groups especially, they would like to have items for every single kid in that room so they don't have to share. Mm-hmm. And we don't have that for double groups right now. Pre-COVID, they would share all that stuff. When we moved to COVID, we bought enough to cover each of the small groups. And so if we bring them back before people feel safe enough, they're going to want to try not to share, and that's just not, right now we're not there with supplies and things like that. I think most of them just want to make sure we can do this safely. We talked about if we want to make a change, one of the things we've talked administratively is we want to make sure that change is sustainable. We don't want to go to a change with the idea that, hey, we're going to give this a try, hopefully it's going to work, but if it doesn't in 2-3 weeks, we'll just switch back. That's not a great model for our staff, for sure, and that's what I'm hearing from them, that switching back and forth is very difficult for all of them and making that happen. So they would like to, if we're going to do something, let's make sure it's going to work, and let's make sure our safety protocols are in place so that we can make this work over the long haul. And so that's what they're asking of us. And then obviously we're coming across flu season, so we had a really good week last week. Obviously the county went down. Hopefully that continues. I think what they're saying is let's make sure that's a trend, not just a 1-week anomaly or a 2-week anomaly before we make that jump. So that's what I'm reading when I read through all those comments. There's definitely people that would love to jump. It was interesting hearing teachers say, yeah, for me it might be simpler to go back to full students in every day of the week. But is it safe? Is it really the best thing, and can we sustain it? Is what I'm hearing. So take some time, read through those. A lot of good information in there just to get a feel for what they're feeling. But I think from the results we're seeing, what they're saying is they're not real comfortable yet. I think that's pretty clear from the survey results. Better at the lower grades, but overall they're still, most of them are not even 50%. There's only 2 grades that are actually above 50% on their comfort level amongst all staff, and that's teaching staff we're looking at right there. So, questions about the survey and what we've got so far?
I don't have any questions on the survey for teachers, but how soon do you think you'll have a survey out to parents?
The initial plan was to go ahead and put that out this week, and so we're going to be putting that together and be within a couple days.
And the biggest reason for surveying parents again would be?
You know, people ask why we survey, but you know, with the COVID situation, it's so changing. It's interesting. You know, if I'd have surveyed in July, it looked a lot different than if I surveyed at 1st of August and if I surveyed now. Times are changing, situations are changing. I would want to present them with the same type of that learning scenario. What will this look like? What's your commitment going to be as a parent to make this work? What's it going to look like in the room? Are you okay with that? We need to get that fresh information for the point. So that's why we wanted to do that survey again. It'll be pretty straightforward like this one was. We're looking at that comfort level, but we'll put that scenario at the start like we did with the teachers and give them a feel for what it might look like to return. So,
Matt, are you going to just survey the hybrid students, or are you going to include the remote also? I mean, my suggestion would just be the hybrid, since the remote learners have already kind of made their
We will probably
decision.
survey everybody, but they can choose what they currently are right now, so we can separate those groups from each other.
Okay.
And in that survey, will you include whether the parents are going to commit to transporting their own students to and from
Yes,
school?
there'll be a transportation question because unless the county numbers get a lot better, we're still going to be tied to that transportation thing. Part of the reason for the survey is because the county isn't in a spot where we can say social distancing isn't a good thing. Or it's always a good thing right now, but they can say we can relax that restriction. With the county not quite being there, we're not quite there either. So,
I have a quick question about liability. If we don't follow the guidelines set before us by the county and the Department of Education and the Department of Health, does that increase our liability? Should we go against their guidelines?
The county guidelines are our recommendations. They will support us in what we try to do. Siemens going to try to go more full-time. They're supporting them and trying to help them make that workable. Just like they do with our activities here in the buildings, we're not under mandates to do that. Now, the governor can set mandates and things like that, and right now we're asked to follow some of those guidelines. But the county is giving us what they would call more recommendations. Okay.
Right. We can move on to.
So the plan just to go future, just so we'll survey elementary. That's the plan right now is elementary, unless you guys want more than that. But we did the elementary teachers. We start with the elementary kids. Survey them, get the results. We'll come back at the next meeting and present those results, and we'll give you kind of my thoughts and our administrative thoughts of maybe a direction to go based off of those. So. We'll also have a couple more weeks of county data. We can see where our trend is.
And have you invited Dr. Pizzino to join us?
I have not, but I'm going to do that.
Okay. I think that would be great.
Yep.
Yeah, I would, to the other board members, I would recommend maybe watching Siemens' last board meeting. It was pretty educational, and then Dr. Pizzino, and I can't remember the other doctor's name.
Dr. Cooley.
Yes, yeah. They both were gracious enough to sit in, and
we meet with them every single week as superintendents, and they've been great to work with, and they give us a lot of good information and guidance that we can follow. So.
It's my understanding that they were attending the Auburn-Washburn School Board meeting tonight. They meet at the same time that we do, and it's my understanding that they were at their meeting, and last I heard, their intentions were kind of monitor the situation and not quite rush into anything yet. So, okay, we'll move on to superintendent's report.
Go ahead and, want to let you know we are still working with our new teachers, years 1 and 2, on the mentor program. Their program looks the same as it always did, just they're teaching in different styles and fashions. So just to let you know, they'll still do, we instead of 2 days of quantum training, we did mostly 2 days of tech training. We had to gear them up to be ready to tackle all the tech they were going to have to do in the hybrid learning. So we modified that a little bit, but they will still do New Teacher Academy. We'll have meetings for that. They'll also meet regularly with their mentors and instructional coaches and get observations from those groups also. So we are working closely with them. It's very important for us to train our teachers to do a great job, and those new teachers in the first and second years are getting a little extra support. We have our KISA Year 5 visit coming up. Erica sits on our team there, and she'll be representing the board at that meeting. But this is our final 5-year visit. We summarize all our growth from the last 5 years and let them know how we're doing on our goals, the family engagement and communication goals that we had, and the goal setting goals we had. So we're looking forward to that. That'll be on Wednesday. We're doing that. Kicking off United Way campaign. That'll be starting here. We have reps from every building, and we'll be meeting with that United Way representative to get that going. So some of those traditional things that happen every year are still going on, and we're trying to keep some of that consistency going. Last thing, just real quick, we met with Dr. Randy Watson, the Commissioner of Education, last week. He came and was doing visits of our schools, and Ann Ma, who's on the Board of Education member and as a patron of our district, came with him. Number one, letting us know about dropping the learning logs. And if you want to talk about something that relieved a lot of stress from teachers and parents, that one on its own relieved a ton of stress. So we were very thankful to the Kansas State Department of Ed and the Board of Ed for supporting that change. We do have to add an assurance, so every parent will have to sign an assurance letter just stating that they will be supporting their student in their learning. And then the district has their own assurance that we've already signed. We actually signed that a couple board meetings ago. And so that's the only thing that has to happen there, so that's much simpler. We do have to track our daily contact communication with students, and that's done through our attendance every day. So when a teacher or other person in the district makes that contact, that daily contact, we record that as a student being present, and so we're monitoring that just through our Power School attendance. So I think we can meet all their requirements with much simpler than we were in the past, and that's good. So any questions there on those?
What are the assurance letters going to go out to the parents?
We are working on that. Ms. Bell was gone last week, so we're catching up on some of those things, but we'll have a plan. We can do those digitally. So I have a feeling we'll be putting something together. Some of the elementaries may want to do it paper-wise, so whatever works for the building, but we've got some digital options and some paper options that we've already gotten samples from different organizations, so we'll be putting those out. We have to have those done by the time our audit takes place, so we've got a little bit of time to make sure we get them all in, and we'll be okay with that.
Great. We'll move on to questions, comments from board members, and if I may, I'd like to start. I want to start by thanking Matt and Sarah for reading those emails. I know we made some adjustments to public comments tonight. We moved the meeting to the auditorium because we fully anticipated far more people coming, and we had 3 parents, and that's okay. But I think moving forward, we'll reevaluate the process, and we'll either continue to meet in the auditorium. In the event that parents do show up, we do have the space and we can meet the mass gathering limitations. But I do also want to point out that we did receive some additional emails tonight that were not read because we felt they contained private student information that we did not feel comfortable disclosing. While they were not read aloud, they have been forwarded to all of us, so please check your email so that we can read those. I have always been a proponent of keeping every channel of communication open, and especially given the current time that we are living in, I in no way want to cut off any channel of communication to us. All of our emails are available. They're published on the USD 450 website. You can email us at any time to share your concerns. It doesn't necessarily have to be a public comment segment to hear for your voices to be heard. So I want to make sure that's known. And I think moving forward, I will be discussing with Matt what our options are for public comments moving forward. But I think we can be able to accommodate public comments in a different manner. I really was surprised by the turnout we had tonight. I really was expecting more people. So thank you everybody for your flexibility in moving to the auditorium, and we'll be looking into that. And I also want to assure the parents whose emails were not read publicly, they will be read. We have all received them. Along those same lines, I think a common thread that we're hearing in some of these is some issues with communication, which, everybody is always talking about communications. But I think if we could get that chain of command put in, published on our website or even sent out to parents, letting them know that if they have a question with X, this is who they should be talking to. Or if they have a question about this, this is who they should be talking to.
We intentionally didn't put that out right now because we didn't want to stifle any public comment to you guys for
Right.
the meeting. But that's the plan for this week is Tiffany and I will be getting that out.
Right. I just want to make sure that the problem some of these parents are facing can actually get solutions by getting to the right people. So if they know who to contact, that's fine. But certainly, like I said, our email addresses are still out there. We still want to know what's going on. We want to hear concerns. So I in no way want to stifle that. Lastly, I just want to say thank you to all of you for taking on our questions tonight and standing up here and taking those questions. And thank you for continuously, I cannot thank you enough for everything that you're doing. Any other questions, comments from board members?
I do. I'm going to bounce around just a little bit, but when we make the decision to stay in hybrid or go back a full 5 days, there are so many components to that decision, and the social emotional piece is big. We've experienced some of that in my own household, and grades aren't looking as sparkly as they have in the past, and we're using that as an opportunity to work on some of those skills. For example, communicating with his teachers directly and learning that life can get frustrating and life can get messy, but we can get through it. We can get through this one day at a time. Especially, I really want to reiterate that the teachers are there to help you. They're there to clarify. And if you communicate with them, they will communicate back with you. It's maybe not occurring as instantaneously as we are used to, but they're there to help you. So I encourage parents and students to keep talking to their teachers. If you're not getting satisfactory answers, please reach out to the instructional coaches and the counselors and the principals, because we all want you to be successful. We need you to be successful. We've also experienced a lot of positive things. I really think some of our buildings have improved their parent pickup processes, and I know that seems minor, but when you've got toddlers, you got to get out of car seats and take them into buildings. It's really been nice. I'm not there anymore, but I can see how changing those processes has been very positive. Teachers are learning new innovative ways to teach, and kids are learning in new innovative ways, and along that comes frustration, but I feel like we're all going to be better for it. We will catch up. We'll get everybody caught up. It's going to take some time. We want everybody to be back in the classroom. We all want that. There's not one of us up here that would say we don't want kids back in the classroom. But we are going to do it strategically, we're going to do it cautiously, and we're going to use the information we have available to us to make that decision. So I know I care very deeply about what's going on in this school, and I know every single one of us does, and every single parent, and every single teacher, and everyone has a very unique experience right now, and we all just want to do what's best for a lot of people, and there's just no one right answer. But I think if we can maintain our course, stay cautious, but still have this vision of getting everyone back in class, I think we're going to be successful.
Erica, that was very well said. Yeah. Thank you. My biggest concern is the fact that if we do move forward, we just don't move right back to hybrid. We would take 2 steps back and we'd be in remote. And so that's my biggest concern, and I think that's why staying the course for a little bit longer is what's going to be best for our students and for our staff. The staff has spoken very clearly that they have the concerns, and I think we need to really take that into consideration. So, but Erica, excellent.
I want to say thank you all for answering my questions. I know that I always ask a lot of questions, but I know you guys always have the right answers, and I think it's very important that the questions are questions that parents are asking, and so I want to ask them because maybe they're afraid or they don't know who to ask, and it's always great for everyone to hear those answers. And you talking about the reason why they set the teachers to see students, there's a reason behind that, and not all of us know the reasons behind that, and I want to know the reasons behind it. And so it's just great to be able to, share that information. And so I know I ask a lot of questions, but there's always a reason to my madness. And thinking about going back to school, I've said it a number of times. I do think our littles, the kindergarten and pre-K should be starting, and I didn't want to wait 4 weeks, to allow teachers the extra 2 weeks, and now we're looking mid-October. So in my mind, so that's why I had to vote no, just because that's where I'm thinking, and then adding everyone else. But I do know flu season is coming, and I get that, and we don't take a flu shot for various reasons. But one thing that, I talk a lot about at home is everybody has to be flexible. And that's been my word with everything, is not everybody's going to get the instant gratification. You just have to be flexible. And I think everybody is adapting to some sort of flexibility with work and home and school. And that's really important. And I've seen some great things happen. Like, I just can't say that enough. At the football game last week, there were two ways to look at it. And the way I chose to look at it is, I know that our stands aren't full, but it was almost like getting this private game that you got to go and see because you had a wristband for the parents that were there. And so it's all in the way that you look at it. But at the same time, I thought, what a great way, that great sportsmanship, when we allowed the opposing team to have their senior night that same night. And everybody in the Shawnee Heights stand clapped for the opposing team. And I thought that was amazing. And seeing that we had so much pride with what we were doing, and we had this other school that, is coming from out of town, and we're allowing them to walk on the field with their moms and in their orange. And I just thought that was the greatest thing. And I will probably always remember that forever, because parents all came together for the sake of what is happening in our community. And our parents and our teachers and our students all on the field were clapping for those other senior parents. And I just thought that was the coolest experience. So thank you, Mr. Hirsch and Cody, for allowing that to happen, and for our, T-Birds to be just so, prideful and allowing that. I thought that was amazing. So that's my speech for tonight. But Mr. Hirsch, I did have one question, and that was one of the superintendent student council. I don't know if that's been posted anywhere. I think it's a great time to get it out so we can hear what some of our students are feeling and thinking. And so I didn't know where you were with that.
Yeah, we haven't started that yet, but I'll contact Mr. West, and we'll get going on that side of it too.
That'd be great. Otherwise, thank you all.
I know you guys, Matt, and your staff and teachers, I know publicly it seems like they maybe are taking a little beating, but I just want to publicly say I think you're doing a good job. I know your staff is doing a great job, and our teachers, I just can't say enough about the job they're doing in these times. So I know one of the reasons I voted no tonight was because I'm really concerned about the at-risk kids and the inequities that exist by keeping those kids remote, because they don't have the built-in family structure. My kids, regardless of how easy or difficult it's going to be, I'm going to make sure that they're successful. And some of those kids just don't have that, and that's where I'm at. Is we got 30? I can't remember what it was. It's 36% of our student population is I would consider at risk, and I just want to make sure that those kids are taken care of.
I can tell you one thing about how strange this year is. Our KESA visit, which is our Year 5 accreditation, is really, really low on our totem pole. That's different. Okay, a normal year that would be what we're planning and working on nonstop for a good several weeks, and literally it's just been, yeah, we're going to get it done, move on. It's just that kind of year, so I appreciate your comments.
Great. If there are no further questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion by Jason. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Erica. All in favor, show of hands. 6